time to add another verse to the song of Sir Waymar P. Royce. I am Matthew.
I am Lucas.
And today we're going to close out Season 2. Now, Lucas and I were talking a little bit before we started recording. And as Lucas said in the last episode, Book 2 is really Tyrion's book. However, the question that I am going to be asking is, if Book 2 is Tyrion's book, then is Season 2 Tyrion's season? So we're not going to answer that question yet.
Oh, I just did. My bad.
Dang! No suspense.
You can edit it out if you want.
Dang, I don't think I will. But we'll get to the reasons why at the end of the episode. That was the big question I wanted to ask you. And you'll find out my answer to that question at the end of the episode, after we talk about episodes 7, 8, 9, and 10 of Season 2.
Yes. And I think that we're going to change it up a little bit here. So we're going to look at some of those storylines that go through, and then we're going to end with, of course, the sort of the pinnacle episode of this season, which was Blackwater. But
some people would say the pinnacle episode of the series.
Oh, really?
But
wow.
Yeah, I was doing research, and that's one of the things I saw is like on the review, like it's historically, I guess by fans, they say it's one of the best episodes of the series. So I don't know if I agree with that. We shall find out how we feel as the series goes on. I hope it doesn't like spoil things for you saying that, because there's a lot of episodes we have left. So just because a majority of people say this does not necessarily make it true.
This is very Tross.
So we are,
yes.
Like Lucas said, we're going to switch up. We're going to talk storyline by storyline, just because all of the storylines for the season have closed out, and we are, we don't care about.
Did they close them out? I mean, did they close them out? I mean, we'll get into it. And, for those who listen to this cast, you know that it's going to be very, very detailed. You can answer this question now if you like, or if you want to wait till the end. But I have a question that I need to know the answer to.
A game of riddles. Okay.
And if anybody ever gets that reference that I just dropped about the question,
oh my god,
I don't know.
I think if you know where that reference comes from, if you can get it and email it to us at waymarpod@gmail.com with the right answer, we will have you on the podcast.
Absolutely.
I think we don't have any prizes. Yeah. That's the only prize we have. So
that's true. But our podcast has a really cool prize for you and I and the cast, and that would be the song at the beginning of each of our podcasts. Shout out.
Yes. Shout out to Mike for the amazing song. He also does the song to Under the Wheels, so much appreciated.
Shout out Under the Wheels. Yes, the question that I need to have answered.
That you need an answer for.
Yes, it is this. Are you enjoying the show?
So, maybe I should hold it. Maybe I should hold the answer till the end of the episode as well.
Okay.
My feelings are complicated. The reason why we're switching up the format is because episodes 7, 8, and 10 were all written by D.B. Weiss and David Benioff. And all three of those episodes feel very samey, where it's like, where like I could have no notes and that would be like the equivalent of the advancement of the episode. So it feels like a lot of those episodes, small things happen, and so then it feels like a lot of the show I'm watching is just kind of stuck in stasis. And it might just be because of the frequency at which we watch it. So I know, Lucas, you watch 2 episodes at a time, or you watch 2 episodes a week, one on Monday, one on Wednesday, and then you have to wait like 5 days. I try to match that by watching them on Tuesday and Thursday. But like these last few, I had to watch one on on Wednesday and then one on Friday. So they're more recent to me. But it just feels like they're pushing the stories forward only like an inch. And over the course of 3 episodes, like if we look back on the season, it looks like a lot happened. But in the episodes themselves, I'm watching them and I'm like, it's fun watching the plates spin. And so like part of it is like, the process of watching the episode is fun. The process of thinking about what's happening is kind of fun. And like, I keep wanting to watch episodes, but I'm trying to figure out like what's driving that forward. And I think most of it is I do enjoy watching the show because I like watching the actors work. I like the actor, like the main core cast is great. There are individual characters in the show that I like the way that the actors are acting. But I'm not in love with all of the storylines. I'm wondering if like there's a lot of times where I'm like, there's a lot of times I'm watching it and I'm like, I don't care about this storyline. 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 And like we can go down the list of them.
Okay, yeah. What were the ones that
a lot of them that I don't care about? So.
Okay, then we'll get those out of the way. But what were the ones that you did care about? I'm just morbidly curious now.
I feel like part of it is just like waiting for things to happen. So I liked all of the Tyrion stuff. I think that stuff is the best stuff. Conceptually, I like Jon going out into the wild, but in execution, I don't know if I would say that I still like it. Let's see, who else do we have? The best part about the Jaime stuff is at the end of the season which I guess takes place in a Storm of Swords. But
yes,
the stuff with Brienne of Tarth, and that part I like a lot. Who else do we have? We have Sansa. I like her story. I'm torn on Aria because I like Jaqen. I like Jaqen Hagar.
I did not know. I did not know he was a faceless man. They do not say that in the books.
Oh, okay. Well, they change. I think they change a lot of that storyline. Is my understanding from reading background on it and talking to you. They changed a lot of that storyline, which makes me frustrated when it comes to the stuff with Sansa. I like the Davos stuff as well. It's like, I liked Blackwater. It's like, oh, well, who didn't?
Who didn't?
but like if I go down it, like I like Sansa as the character that I think she's supposed to be, which she might not be in the book. It might just all be in my head. But it feels like she's a missed opportunity in the show most of the time.
I agree
Theon
with that.
story, I don't like. The Daenerys story this season, I don't like. The Robb and Caitlyn storyline this season, I don't like. The Jon in the Wild storyline, I felt like it just moved too slowly. The Aria storyline, I think they made so many changes to it that like that that they have to, I don't know. But I don't love Aria in the show. I know that's probably the most controversial take I'll have in here, because she constantly just looks like a deer with headlights. I think people
little bit different. No. It's different in the books, obviously.
No.
We'll get into
people
it.
love Maisie Williams. People love Maisie Williams. I'm gonna get death threats.
Well, so yeah.
But I know she
loves,
develops differently in the show.
My wife loves the Aria storyline. The entire show, obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, then you couldn't get away from any kind of pop culture. And the show has this reputation, I don't know if it's deservedly so, that, everybody dies. And, of course, key characters die. We already saw Ned Stark die. And, why watch the show? And, Aria was the one that my wife was rooting for. She was
Yeah,
she
that
was
she
the
would
character
come out the
that
other end.
yeah, she was the character that she wanted to keep watching to see what was going to happen. As we'll talk about one of our other friends at the end of season 3.
But
Who stopped watching.
But yeah. We'll talk about we'll approach it. Maybe we should have him on and have him talk about it for like 5 minutes, do a pre-recorded session, and but yeah, so I don't know, like I'm both highly transfixed with the show and also like disappointed by it. I don't know. I guess those feelings have never changed, and like maybe I should just stop talking about it because I feel like I just make it depressing for everyone else who listens. But I am enjoying the experience of watching the show. So I'm enjoying the experience. It's just, especially when I get to the behind the episode stuff, it's frustrating. And I'm trying to change that where I'm not constantly just focusing on negatives. So I do have a compliment for the last episode for what they say about that. So we'll end it on a positive note. But I think that answers your question in a very Matthew way, I think.
It does.
So,
there was a whole decade of knowing you where your entire answer would just say yes and no. For a whole decade, that was your answer.
Yeah.
But I think you have a fair point. I mean, so many questions are very nuanced and they need to be explored. It's not just a yes or no answer. I mean, you could take that statement with most things in life. Did you like the steak? Well, yeah, but I've had better, you know?
I mean, I think if you, like, the other thing is, like, I don't think the writing is as amazing as most people think it is. And I think that, like, watching Blackwater and then watching the other 3 episodes kind of reinforces that to a degree. But, and it's one specific scene that I would say that I was like, this is different caliber of writing than what D.B. Weiss and David Benioff are doing. But the production value is always really good. The actors are really good. That's it. Because like the camera work I can give or take. The way that the show is edited has never really blown me away. The number of directors, like their quality varies. But yeah, so there's a couple of things keeping me to it, and then also just because it's so much in the pop lexicon, and also I think personally, my interest in it is partially to watch it with you and see like, was this show overrated at the time that it came out, or was it really as good as everyone said it was? How is Lucas responding to it? Which is actually the question I'm going to ask you. How is Lucas responding to it? And then if things went bad, were there signs early? So I guess I have 4 things. The 4th thing is, why did it go bad? And did it actually go bad? So those are the things that I'm constantly thinking about as I'm watching the show. So it's bad because I'm watching it with hindsight and being critical about decisions they made early that we look back on and see what kind of effect they had. So
that's interesting thoughts. Yeah, you're kind of going in with this expectation. And for the viewers who maybe they didn't read the books, because let's face it, they're very, very long. I mean, they're best-selling books and everything, but obviously, in my opinion, I think television reaches more people than books do. And it was extremely popular. And now we kind of get to see why. And so all these viewers are watching the show for the first time and experiencing the story through the television show for the first time. Whereas I was very clear with all my friends that I want to experience the story and all the twists and turns through the books first, then kind of go back and watch the show, see what happens. So you sort of have, you do have a little bit of hindsight when watching it. I can 100% imagine that those who were watching it as the episodes premiered were absolutely 100% like just totally locked in to see what happens. And in I mean,
I am too. I want to know what happens, but it's going at such a slow pace. Well, not necessarily a slow pace, but
well, then you find characters that you just love. Right? You absolutely love some of these characters, and you want them to get ahead. You want them to to really triumph in the end, because this is such a deep, dark world, and there's mysteries and things in this world that are just so scary and so dark and depth, just really nightmarish qualities in this world. And it is fantasy, right? You want good versus evil in fantasy, and this is sort of taking fantasy and spinning it on its head. Some of the good guys are kind of evil, and some of the evil people are kind of good. And it's very complicated, and it's very unusual to have this in fantasy. And that's where I think, why is a show, you asked before, why are you transfixed by the show? And I think I might know why. It's because this world is so unique, and they do a really good job of bringing it to life in the show. That's one thing, in my opinion, I think they did a really, really fantastic job on. As the show goes on, I almost feel like they should try to do more of that, highlight more of the set pieces and the production, because so much effort went into it. And as I kept talking about before, less in some of the other storylines that are filler. But anyways.
I don't know if that second part where they go less in the filler storylines happen. I will tell you that the battles get better and better. Apparently, I've been told that the battles get better and better as they go, and to the point where in the last season they start having the last season has just regular episodes that are like an hour and a half long. So,
wow. Oh my.
So it's gonna start getting they really like start pumping just burning money at this show. They really do. HBO does. So, which they start doing this season with Blackwater.
One more thing I want to ask, something you mentioned before, which we'll get into, is the pacing of the show. Because you talked about how a lot of times you just kind of feel like it's just one kind of long thing, and maybe each episode it doesn't feel like they're moving the storylines appreciatively enough. As in, like, you can, it relatively, like you can appreciate, at this episode, this is where they started, and then at this episode, this is where they're at. And I really did feel that with Aria and Tywin, when Tywin comes to Harrenhal. Now, how many episodes is Tywin and Aria really there? Maybe 2 episodes? But it feels like it's a long time, and you don't really feel like things are happening.
They were there. They were there when we talked about the show last week. Or not last week, but last episode, we talked about those episodes, and they were there for 2 episodes there, and then they were there for 2 episodes here. So they've been there for at least 4 episodes, and it feels like they've been there for a while, where they've been like really mixing this story.
Yeah,
but yeah, you're right. Like they started this season on the road with the Night's Watch.
That's
just like
right.
But that's where they started the first 2 episodes, and then from from episode
I'm so sorry. I'm looking back through the book, and I'm sorry, not the book. I'm looking back through my notes, and I'm trying to see where Tywin arrives, because I remember making a note that Robert Baratheon, who would have gotten tortured, would have been laughing at his torturers. I got it. Episode 4 is when Tywin arrives. So Tywin is there. So at the very end, episode 4. So he's there in episode 5. He's there in episode 6.
7.
He's there in episode
8.
7. And in episode 8, that's when he leaves. And that's a good 4 episodes where Tywin and Arya are in this area together, and there's so many different storylines going on. So they have, in all of those episodes, it's probably 20 minutes. But because it's sparsed out over all those different episodes, it just, every episode from episode to episode doesn't really feel like a whole lot's happening. But what really is going on is Jack and Hagar is John Wicking everybody. And, that's what's going on there.
Yeah, with poison darts.
That they don't know where
did he get the poison darts? Did he hide it in his asshole?
I mean, you've got, So they talk about the poison.
we'll talk about Jack and Hagar when we get to that storyline.
Yeah, like they talk about the poison, but they don't talk about the dart.
I have questions. I have questions about Jack and Hagar. So, but I like him. Even that goofy visual effect. It was a very well done visual effects shot, but I will call it the goofy visual effects shot at the end of episode 10 when he turns around and then he turns back around and his face is like the face of a troll. Like, whoa. but just like it was just so goofy. I was like, all right, that's funny. It made me laugh. I did a double take. I had to watch it again. I was like, did they cut in between, or was it no? It's a visual effects shot. Okay.
Or did his face actually change, or did it look kind of the same? He like turns around and he turns back, and it's like, no, it's the same face. Just
just more planes on it.
Almost like Bilbo when he reached for the ring. Almost.
Oh man.
All right.
All right. So, should we get into the storylines?
Let's do it, and let's get out of the way.
Let's peel off the Band-Aid.
Yeah, let's get through my least favorite storyline first. And I think this is not... I put little hearts around the storylines that you liked. And I got some half hearts in there, too, and some heart question marks. So, yeah.
Wait, is
this... It was the Theon
all right,
one.
okay. So that's right. So the 6th episode is when Osha seduces Theon, right?
No, Tonks. Yep.
No, Tonks. Yeah, I was gonna say no. I saw so much of Tonks. All right. Anyway, she's great. So. Osha. I feel like I should go back and rewatch when she was first introduced, because like I haven't done that since I was like, oh yeah, that's Tonks, and just you're acting all like gritty and crazy. But anyway, Theon's storyline.
You know, if I rewatch this show, it's gonna be years later, and I don't know if I will. Like we were talking about, we'll see at the end. So yes. By the way, I did finish Storm of Swords, and I started Feast for Crows. And there is a scene in Feast for Crows that involves the Greyjoys, and let's just say, in the books, it's also not my favorite storyline. It took me 4 days to get through that chapter. That chapter was only 20 pages. I could only read like 5 pages a day of that. It was a little torture. I know. I feel like I could be critical of the author as well. Like that was really, really frustrating and difficult to get through.
I was gonna say, like, I know that it must be tough because you loved A Storm of Swords. You sent me a message saying it's probably one of the best books you've ever read.
Yes, no joke. That was
so.
It was incredible.
I would be super disappointed if I followed it up with A Feast for Crows, from my understanding, because it's like just looking at the POV characters. There's actually some that I look at and I'm like, I want to read this, but yeah, I can see you not.
I think we should discuss that when we get to that part of the show.
Yeah. But I was gonna say, I wanted to look at the point of view characters, because there's some there's some in there that I'm like, but that's important. But I don't think you've gotten there yet.
No, not yet.
But
I'm still.
But
at
we
the
should also be.
of it.
Yeah. Okay. So you started A Feast for Crows.
Yes, I started Feast for Crows, and I was looking online because it's true. The two books run parallel together: Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons. And so, shout out to the website. I was looking for a sequence of chapters to read between the two books to kind of bridge them together. And partially that was because I could keep up with the podcast and the episode watching. Because the episodes sort of, I don't know, they start taking bits and pieces from other books. So I wanted to make sure I could hit that up as well. So, yeah, it's called A Ball of Beasts, trying to keep in line with George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones, Clash of Kings, Storm of Swords, a ball of beasts. So they had a lot of that website. Apparently took a lot of inputs, and then they did a lot of. I'm sure they did a ton of reading and try to parse it together. So yeah, I'll let you know how that one goes as we get to that part in the show. But for now, my least favorite storyline is Theon.
I'm looking at the point of view characters for A Dance of Dragons, and you're right. It just doesn't freaking compare. Anyway, I can't even imagine what you think if you breeze through it, knowing what you know, and you're just like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Okay, Theon's storyline.
Yes, Theon takes Winterfell, and in this episode, Yara, who's named Asha from the books, not to be confused with Osha.
He goes looking for the kids. They stumble upon a farm. That happened in episode 7. They looking for the kids.
I am one episode ahead. I'm so sorry. Yes, I just wrote the words Theon. Yeah, so yes, that's right. They're looking for the kids, and they can't find them. And what's great about this, though, is watching the actor for Theon just go absolutely nuts. I just wrote here, Theon goes nuts, and he just went absolutely crazy. He looked paranoid. He looked like he had all these pressures on him. His men were looking at him. And what was his name? Cleftjaw. Dagmar Cleftjaw. He's the shaved head and always snarling and sneering. He's that fellow. He's always kind of like pushing and pressuring Theon. So later on, he finds something and says, "Hey, look at this." And they find some of the clothes and stuff from Bran and Rickon. And so then at the end of the episode, which was super sad, was you see these 2 little kids hanging, all their bodies charred, and it was a terrible scene, just emotionally, and I feel like the show didn't really do a great job because Theon would have this horrible blood on his hands. And I don't know if you felt it, but of course in the books, he has nightmares about the whole thing going on. What did you think about that from a viewer perspective?
I think the payoff happens in episode 10. That's like, I knew that wasn't because I mean you knew that and I knew that, so maybe part of it was like spoiled for us that it probably wasn't one of the kids.
They spoiled it very quickly. The very next episode they spoiled it. The books, it was not spoiled. I was reading that and I just went, oh my god. Oh my god. Yeah,
you're just like, Stark kid roundup. Oh my god. More like Stark 2 kids roundup.
And
3,
in the show, Theon kills all the ravens. But in the books, ravens get out. Word gets out that Bran and Rickon are dead. And that is Catelyn's motivation for letting Jaime go. To get her daughters back. Catelyn in the books knows that. Catelyn in the show
I wonder if they looked at it. I wonder if the showrunners looked at it and they're like, well, what's the logical thing for Theon to do? Oh, he'd kill all the ravens so that word can't get out. Because Theon's stupid.
Not that logical. He's not that logical. He's in way over his head. He doesn't know what he's doing. And it was very clear of that when Yara comes into town in episode 8. That was about it for the Theon connection there. Yara comes into town. Yeah, go ahead with your notes. I just have very few notes on this.
Yeah, I liked the scene between Yara and Theon because it was like, we don't know anything about Yara. We just know that she's snarky and stuff. But I don't know if that was the same that happens in the book, but like the interaction that they had and kind of like Theon's own sort of like Greek tragedy going on.
Yes.
Where he's like giving himself the rope to hang his neck. Like I think something that was conveyed to me in the summary that wasn't conveyed to me as well in the show was the fact that Winterfell isn't a strategic a point of strategic importance for the Iron Islands. That's like they make that clear in the description. Like that's why Yara is there. She's like, why did you capture Winterfell? We don't need it. It's not important. But in the show, she's just like, I'm glad you captured it. Now come back home with me. And like, I don't know. I feel like the Theon storyline for me is just frustrating. It's not necessarily like it's tragic in the sense of like, oh, this is sad that he made it his home. But it just like, as I'm watching it, I'm just like frustrated because like human flaws and everything. And I understand that he wants to impress his dad, but that's why I think it's so, the 10th episode is his story in the 10th episode is so good. Let me see if I do have any notes about, well, that's where it all comes to a head is the 10th episode.
That was a great conversation. You are right. I just kind of remember that. The acting was excellent. Just it was the dialogue I thought was very good. I forgot all about that. I just maybe it's just me as a human being not enjoying the Theon storyline. Like don't care. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just did not really.
I don't. Yeah,
really care
that's
about
why
Theon.
I was surprised when you said you tore through a Clash of Kings because like. I don't know. The Theon storyline, like I said, it's just frustrating to me.
I would stop at the Theon chapters.
Okay, all right. I was so excited because you were like, dude, Theon becomes a point of view character back when we first read it while the show was like coming out. I'm pulling up my notes for episode 207 to see if I have any Theon notes. But yeah, just like the whole time, it's just like, I don't care.
Right. I'm sure that there's a lot there, and in the books he's having nightmares about what he did, and George R. R. Martin's hiding his hand very well. You know, he just he talks about it, the Stark kids and what he did, and he just has nightmares. He can't sleep. All of a sudden, you can't sleep, you can't think. It's affecting everything he does. He gets super paranoid about everybody there, and he's super guilty. It's just this huge wash of emotions that Theon has. And then, yeah, the show doesn't seem to go into as much strategy as the books did because it is very clear in the books his sister, named Asha, not Yara, but,
right.
We already, it's okay. Like, I don't really mind. But mostly because I didn't care about the Greyjoys anyways. But yeah, it's really bad because how are they going to hold it, right? It's in the middle of the land, away from the ports where the Ironborn rage and roam. It's a terrible location, and it's in the north. The lands aren't, like, they're not that great. It's just
fertile or anything, yeah.
Did you have anything
it's just capturing a keep to capture a keep.
Yes.
So I think the reason the story is so frustrating and hard is because like we don't want to see Theon do this because it doesn't make sense, and Theon keeps doing it even though he knows that it doesn't make sense. But it's like I understand that, but it still doesn't mean that I want to watch it.
It's tragic. It's 100% tragic.
It's tragic and it's interesting, kind of, but I still don't need to watch this character hang himself with rope in slow motion.
It's probably one of those characters where you're watching it going, what would I do in this situation? Now let's watch what Theon does. And he seemed, where you're watching Theon thinking like, well, he's lived in this world. He knows more about it than we do, obviously. What's he going to do? Because he knows. But then you realize he doesn't know what he's doing. And then you're like, what would I do in this situation? I mean, it's just very, so very, very interesting. Yeah. Did you have anything else on 208 for Theon?
No, I think the Yara scene is great because like it actually, like, to the writer's credit, even though to the writer's credit they do a good job of establishing that she's frustrated with Theon, but also that she still loves him, which is something they say in the behind the episode. They're like, she's blah blah blah, but like I think it's the way, and it's specifically the way it's written because they talk about like that specific story she says, and I don't know if that's in the book where she's like, you were always crying and I hated it and I hated you so much, and I'd walk into the room and then you would just look up to me and stop crying. Or like she said something about that, and I was like, that's fantastic. Like that explains their relationship so well and helps to really concretely humanize Yara in a way that I think like they weren't necessarily doing before. But then it also is like she is trying to help him understand these feelings because he doesn't have anyone who can help him. But instead of turning to her for help, he turns to the person who in the show got him into this mess in the first place, which is his first mate.
No, Dagmar Cleftjaw.
Which is like, again, kind of annoying because like as we're watching it, we're like, you know that this is not a great person to trust. We know that like, well, let's go to episode 10. Unless you had another question to ask me.
No.
Okay. So,
no
Theon's
joy for the great
storyline in
Royce.
Theon's storyline in episode 10. The poor Maester.
Go for it. Yeah.
Well, the only thing I was gonna say is just like the Maester like summarize, like it's that sort of thing that like if the show were doing a better job in the previous episodes, it would be better to show it and not tell it. But luckily, they have a good actor say what needs to be said to help the audience who may not necessarily understand what Theon's going through, help to create empathy. And then, and he's constantly like, oh, blah, 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 this, blah, 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 blah. The horn that keeps going off, that's keeping him awake at night, which I guess in the book, if he's having nightmares, then he could blame the horn for keeping him awake. But like that stuff I thought was really good and really powerful. And it's like, how many times do you need an exit off the terrible on-ramp you're on before you get off and Theon just decides to lean in, and he gives a pretty good speech. And then they just like, I don't know if that's what happens in the book as well, where a guy just clobbers him on the head and they all just are like, all right, we're out. We don't know why we followed him into this in the first place. There's only 20 of us against 5,000 men. Bye-bye. And then they kill the Maester, and I'm really sad.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about this part. Yeah.
Cool. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, the conversation, I don't know if it happened word for word, but it was a really good conversation with the Maester and Theon. I agree, 100%. He was given the option in the books to take the black, and the more I think about it, the more I realize why I just didn't like it is because, Winterfell is home of the Starks, and the Starks are in dire situation right now, and just really sad, and it gets super dark. I mean, remember what I said on our very first show of the podcast? 15 minutes into the show, just stop watching. If you don't want to see bad things happening, just stop watching. Like that's it. Just stop watching because, but if you don't, if you really want to see what happens, obviously, and it's very good for me. It's a very good story, but it was so dark and just so bad. And man, when I was reading it too, I was. Because he kills people, right? He killed Ned, or the author did, and so you're reading this that he killed Bran and Rickon, and you're just like, oh my god, like they're gone. They're like it was hard. And
there's something about killing children who are point of view characters that it's so much worse.
There's something about killing children. Period. I mean, it's so dark. It's one of the worst crimes I think that anybody can commit, and Theon did it. And he is paying for it, with his nightmares and things like that, and apparently what happens to him. So yes, in Winterfell, he gets knocked out by Dagmar Cleftjaw, and it's just like, oh, ha ha ha. So he got knocked out by his own men. And to set the stage, there was a horn outside, and that's because Roose Bolton's bastard had surrounded the castle. Yeah, because Roose Bolton was like, Roose.
Or whoever.
Bolton. Yeah, he sent his son, Ramsay Snow, to get up there to Winterfell. And he's like, oh, my bastard's almost there to Winterfell. And then he had it all surrounded. That was him. That was Ramsay. He has the whole thing surrounded. And so they're blowing the horn and stuff. And then, Dagmar just like, rah, knocks him out, And that's all we know about Theon. Very different from the books. I mentioned earlier you didn't know Bran and Rickon were alive. And there was this whole back and forth standoff, hostage negotiation with Theon and Sir Roderick Cassel, where in the show they did a little bit differently, and I actually thought
they just killed him off quickly.
It wasn't a bad way to do it, because in the books it's very clear it is very hard to hold a keep, very hard, and when they're starting to siege things back in medieval times, it's not something that you can just do in a couple of scenes in a television show. I mean, sieges last days and nights for like weeks. You know, this is like super long term in his story. Well, what happens is that the character of Dagmar Cleftjaw is actually a servant, and the servant smells horrible. The servant's name is Reek! And Reek was the one who had the idea to kill the farmer or the miller's children and frame them as them, not Dagmar Cleftjaw. Dagmar Cleftjaw's kind of dumb. He's just a soldier.
Right.
But this
person,
you told me
Reek,
that
before, yeah.
Yeah, he's very, very clever. And so then, as Winterfell's going on, with this, you know, people around the outside and Theon's going crazy, getting super paranoid, Reek is the one that actually hits Theon in the head. And later you find out, oh, that's not Reek at all. Reek traded places with, no! Roose Bolton's bastard! Ramsay Snow. So Ramsay was the one who came up with the plan. He was the one who set all this in motion. He was the one who was very guiding and manipulating Theon into doing this. And Ramsay is the one that knocked him out. Ramsay is the one who caught Theon, and now he's with Roose Bolton's folks. And at the end of the chapter, Ramsay looks around and says, burn it all. Burn Winterfell down to the ground. And so none of this like, oh, look at this like wise Kraken first mate, Dagmar Cleftjaw. Oh, let's knock out our leader. Ha ha ha. What an idiot leader. All right, let's get out of here. No, it was Ramsay manipulating and kind of doing things that way.
How much do you know about Ramsay Snow?
That's it. He makes no appearance in book 3.
Okay.
Yeah. But apparently he's a thing. So I actually thought while watching, I was like, I bet Dagmar Cleftjaw's really Ramsay. And then, no, he's not. It's like, oh, okay.
No, nope.
He's just
they just do it for a bit of comedy. It's just a
did
bad comedy routine. Hey, guys.
Yes.
Wasn't that fun? Sacking this town? Har, har, har.
Hardy har har. So yeah, I thought that the show might have done a really cool, clever bait and switch for the fans of the books, which I am not opposed. If you watch the show and you've read the books and something works out different where they do a little bait and switch, and you're watching the show, you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. But no, they didn't, and I am cool moving away from Theon and the Winterfell.
Let's just
destruction.
Well, do you want to talk about that? We should probably just quickly talk about Bran.
Yes.
Let's just get him out of the way.
Let's just get the Winterfellians out of the way. Yeah, so they're hiding in the keep.
Yep.
And then they are hiding in the keep. Master Lewin is like, oh, wow, they're alive. And, you know, I read somewhere, I didn't piece this together, but I read somewhere that, Bran's a cripple. So Master Lewin is a wise maester. He'd be able to look at it and just be like, no, that's not a cripple's legs. So he probably figured it out a lot earlier than anybody. So yeah, he helps the kids. And then episode 10, I'm just sort of giving a very fast forward of Bran. They jump out of their little hiding place and they see the whole place just destroyed. They meet with Master Lewin and he says, I don't really know, but I think he basically says, go to the wall, go to Jon, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what he says in the show is like, go to Jon, Jon will protect you.
Again, different from the novels.
So what happens in the book?
He is with the two characters, Jojen Reed and Mira Reed. and they're from the Reeds. They're from Greywater Castle, which is this floating, moving castle in the swamplands of the Neck. Nobody knows where it is. Nobody can find it. It's like moving around. So they're very mysterious and kind of weird. They eat frogs and they have green eyes, like bright. And if you have these special dreams, you have bright green eyes. So they're all hiding under there. And actually, it was Jojen who said that he prophesized this was going to happen. He's like, a great water will overtake Winterfell, and all these people are going to drown. And some of the folk who were told that they were going to drown, they were like, I'm staying away from waters. I'm not bathing for weeks. All this, super, very, what's the word, like superstitious kind of thing.
Right.
And of course, the tidal wave was the Kraken, right? The Greyjoys. And so they're all hiding together. They can't get out of the crypt, and Hodor has to Hodor! Turns into freaking Spider-Man
Quasimodo.
when he's Quasimodo, Spider-Man with in the episode where Dr. Octopus has him pinned under a bunch of stuff, and he's just
the final chapter. Yeah,
that's it. Yes, that's right. I knew you would know that. And anyways, Hodor does Hodor's it, just gets him out of there, and the whole place is burned, and as they're leaving Winterfell, Jojen tells Bran, "You got to open your third eye. You got to talk to the three-eyed crow," which we had seen in season 1. Did we see it at all in season 2?
I think we saw a couple of dreams, because he has the dream about the water coming over the wall, and he tells that to Osha. So I think he did see that. Yeah, I think they did have the crow in season 2, but it was early in season 2. Right. It was the first couple episodes.
Right. Jojen is the one who sees the future. Bran does not. He actually gets better at entering Summer's mind. So he is what they call a warg, right? He takes the consciousness of Summer, and that happens a lot at the end of the book. He's walking around Winterfell. He sees Winterfell destroyed, but it's from the point of view from a wolf. So it's very kind of hard to parse details for a human being. Easy to parse details if you're a wolf. So Gotcha. That's how they know that's when they need to leave, is because Bran was in Summer, and Summer, the wolf, was running around seeing what was going on, and he saw that it was deserted. And so that's when they left. So as they're leaving Winterfell, Bran has no future abilities. He can't see anything into the future. Right. That's all Jojen. So Jojen says, we have to go north, and we got to do it. If you want to meet the crow with 3 eyes, we got to do it. So Jojen, Mira, Bran, and Hodor march north towards the wall. Rickon and Osha go south, and we hear nothing about Rickon. No, Shaggy Dog. And
Shaggy Dog. I saw him on the show, and I was like, no, Shaggy Dog.
Shaggy Dog. Yeah. And so that's how Bran's storyline ends up.
Okay.
Sort of everybody kind of, him is his point of view is more like traveling on to bigger things at the end of season 2.
It's funny because that sounds a lot like the books dance around a lot with standard fantasy fare every now and then, that seems like a very traditional fantasy storyline.
So is Jon Snow's. So is Jon Snow's. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about Jon Snow now? Oh, Bran's storyline in the show felt like a lot of spinning plates. The only thing that I thought was significant was Bran overhearing from the Maester and Osha talking about we can't let Bran have these deaths on his head, and of course he has the deaths on his head because he's awake and listening. It's okay. All right.
That's a lot to put on a poor kid. That's a lot. I know. Jen always looks at me and says, "Oh, poor Bran. Hasn't he suffered enough?" Oh, yeah.
The show is suffering. That's why it's so fascinating that people love it so much. It's but there's so much I don't know. Anyway, should we talk about Jon?
Yeah, let's do it.
You want to jump there next so we can wipe out all of the North?
Let's do that. Yes. Okay. Episode 7. I didn't write down anything with Jon Snow. So
Jon
you might have to augment that. I did not see anything in episode 7.
Let's see. We have our first appearance of you-know-nothing Jon Snow.
Oh! Did you take a drink when you heard that? Or are we counting them? Just like, bend the knee! No, okay.
I mean, I don't know. I stopped counting the bend the knees, although there haven't been any lately, so I guess that's... So I guess all that happened was, like, they walked some more. Because I do have in here season 2, episode 7, felt like, oh, that's right. Jon and Ygritte, in my phone it autocorrected to Yvette. Jon and Yvette have a political debate. And I thought that was funny.
Right.
They're just like standing around in the snow having a political debate.
And don't they get ambushed by the other
Snow.
wildlings?
Did that yeah, I guess that happens at the end of... Let's see here. Jon captures Ygritte, but she escapes again, leading him into a trap. Yes. So they get captured by the other wildlings in that episode.
Aside from the like incredible set, there's not much there's not too much there, I think. Again, like you said, spinning plates, kind of soap opera. Let's like do 3 minutes for like every character in every episode. So I don't have. Yeah, please do. I've got.
Oh, that's right. There's the teasing of the sexual inexperience. There's the teasing of the sexual inexperience of Jon Snow, and then and he rebuffs her advances.
That's right. The dialogue was actually really good.
Yeah, I wish I could remember what they said in those scenes. I can't for the life of me. I just remember I thought it was like, because there's a lot of like YouTube online debates about things, and that's what this felt like. It was just like it wasn't like one of those. It was more of like an escalation of like when you talk to someone and they're like, I'm trying to think of it, but like usually they'll have like an opinion, and then you'll be like, well, why do you think that? And then they'll say something, and like say, okay, but this is caused by that. Does that change your opinion at all? And then it was like that. So
it was.
That's why I call it a political debate, because it was just like, I don't know.
That conversation would have happened in a Storm of Swords, by the way.
Is a Storm of Swords a lot more dialogue driven?
Storm of Swords is Jon's story.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of stuff happens. Lots of things happen in Storm of Swords, but Jon is very much at the forefront in A Storm of Swords. So in Clash of Kings, he obviously journeys, right? In the books, right? He begins with, "No, Samwell Tarly," and they're underneath the crypts looking at all the books and stuff. But then they travel north, they travel to Craster, they travel to the Fist of the First Men, and then they Jon and Qhorin Halfhand travel out scouting ahead. They get introduced to Ygritte. In the books, he lets Ygritte go.
Right.
And then he goes back and he finds his mates. But let's continue with the show, I think, and then I'll give my thoughts about the novel version, and then I'd like to hear your reaction too.
Yeah. So then in episode 8, Ygritte and her companions present Jon to the Lord of Bones. She convinces them to spare Jon's life, saying Mance Rayder would want to meet him.
No, Mance Rayder! That's right, they meet Rattleshirt, aka Lord of Bones, who's a very boastful gentleman.
So
and
this is what threw me off, was like, one, I didn't see enough of Qhorin to know what he looked like. So when he was captured, I was like, who is this guy? Because Qhorin is captured, and apparently he's not in the book.
Nope.
But we'll get to that, I'm sure. And then 2, like I didn't quite understand. I thought that he was trying to plot with Jon, like an escape, like say that you're with them, and then we'll plot an escape, which comes into play in episode 10,
Right.
What I thought happened in episode 10. But apparently he was saying defect to be a wildling so you can get information and then bring it back to the wall.
That's right.
So that was...
Find the half hand! Sorry, I totally interrupted you.
But that's all I have to say about... Well, oh, and then I thought it was cool that they... let me look at my notes on episode 8.
Yeah, just have pretty much... Jon was caught with Corran. The wildlings had already killed Corran's party, but they captured him alive
in the
because
show,
he's in the show because he's a very famous ranger, and so they wanted to take him and Jon to Mance Raider.
Mance Raider. No, Mance Raider.
I kind of wonder, should they have done one episode with, just for example, the Theon stuff and the Jon Snow stuff, and then another episode with the Aria and Tyrion, and should they have split up the episodes that way instead of have each character appears like 5 to 10 minutes? Should they have done maybe 30 minutes per character in episode 7, 30 minutes for another set of characters in episode 8, or do you think the 10 minutes per episode was, their appearance was good?
I've been wondering that since we started watching this show.
That is a decision that the showrunners make. That is not a decision from the directors. That is not a decision from the writers. Well, it might be a writer decision, but I don't think so.
From the writers, because they're the ones writing these episodes. So I feel like you can see a difference between the episodes that are written by them and the episodes that are written by other people, because the other people will develop certain things that happen. Whereas I feel like D.B. Weiss and David Benioff are more interested in just pushing their Warhammer figures forward an inch. That's what I mean by pushing the story forward. This is a weird group of episodes because they're mainly written by D.B. Weiss and David Benioff. So we feel like this is the effect that they've had the whole show. But there are other episodes that don't feel like this. Like Blackwater's an episode that doesn't. And
right.
I wonder if without Blackwater, if they would have just stuck with the format that they're doing, where they're just pushing everything forward a couple of inches and revealing a little bit of information. The other problem is like you said, the Jon storyline, the Rickon storyline, the Theon storyline, all of that could have been told in a handful of scenes. And instead of just telling it in a handful of scenes in one episode, I mean, I don't know. Who knows how it would feel if you just had them back to back to back. Instead of like I said, like a soap opera. But in a soap opera, it's okay if you push the story forward an inch at a time when you're watching every single episode every single day. When you're watching it once a week, you're just it's just hitting the cliffhanger itch. It's like, oh my God, give me a little bit more. Just a little bit more. So.
It's sort of like when we watched Dragon Ball Z when we were kids, not Dragon Ball Z Kai, but Dragon Ball Z, and they would just stare at each other for 5 minutes straight, and then they cut to another thing, and they wouldn't push any of the storylines forward, right? I mean, that's sort of the analogy that I can draw.
The longest 30 minutes or whatever, 10 minutes on Namek.
This planet will blow up in 10 minutes. Yeah. 12 episodes later, Goku finally gets out of there. That's kind of how I was feeling. And I was thinking about that watching. Now, I don't know if they're going to change that moving forward. They might just be testing this out, and then maybe they change it later, or maybe they just keep doing this little pushing forward. Because one thing I was thinking about was stories are about characters. They're about characters, and they're about their decisions and their actions. And sometimes I feel the way that that these episodes have been structured, and mark me if I'm wrong, is it feels like you said, they're just kind of pushing the pieces forward. Like, these things are just happening to these characters, and you watch these are just happening to the characters. That's fine. It doesn't really feel like any decisions are happening, or they're really in charge of doing things. It's just sort of like, oh, then this happens, then this happens, then this happens. Oh, what a twist! Then this happens. Instead of like you can see their decision-making process, think about it, and I think that you could get there if we did what we talked about, which is have Theon be a whole half an episode. But it's I'm sure to give the showrunners credit. I'm sure that's a hard decision.
I agree with you.
Sometimes you don't know until you try it, and then you're like, okay, let's try something different. Or maybe they're like, oh, it's so successful, we got high ratings, let's keep it going, right? Like, you're not going to change until, so, we shall see.
Like, I guess the other question is like, why are people watching? Like, I know why I'm watching. I'm looking forward to like these massive events that I've heard happen. But, I don't know. Why are people watching? Is it really because you guys are structuring the episodes well? Or is it something else? And also, think about it this way. Like, we don't watch it week to week. We watch it a couple of days. If you're watching it week to week, you probably want to see what is evolving in those people's storylines. Possibly. I don't know. Whereas if you get the whole thing in one go, you can have bottle episodes of just these characters or just that. I know that some people don't like bottle episodes, but I do like it when an episode is just devoted to like explaining and fleshing out one character. So, but
Also, it was before streaming really took off too.
It was. It's still event television, yeah.
If this show was created, like a year ago, only for HBO Max, it could just, I could maybe see it in a different format because you just watch this episode. Oh, my favorite characters weren't in it. Well, let me watch the next one because I can. Because you bring up a good point. We can watch it like this and streaming, and we choose to watch it delayed a little bit, to parse it out. But the viewer who was watching it live, they had to see it week to week. And if Jon Snow wasn't in that episode that week, oh no, I have a bad week on Monday. Right? So although that's an argument for what they did.
I was gonna say, although. Nope, Karth was in this episode. I was going to say, like, it felt like there were a couple of episodes where they didn't have certain characters. They didn't have major players in it. Like, because in this episode, I don't think they had Jaime or Brienne. I don't know. I don't remember if they did or not, but they must have. They must have. I'm going crazy. But, yeah.
They do have, we can... discuss
I don't want to jump
too.
to that storyline. Let's stick with Jon because we still have episode 10 of Jon's story.
Should we just jump into 10? I'm good with 8. It was the conversation with Ygritte, and then they fall into a trap with the other wildlings.
No, that was 7. In 8.
Oh, that was 7. You're right.
We have the Lord. In 8, we have the Lord of Bones, and then Corran tells Jon to defect to Mance's army to learn his plans.
I think that was it.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah. But then this is where it gets pretty good in 10, right? This is where the story pushes forward in 10.
Also, Sam discovers dragon glass, which I thought was cool.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Well done, show. In the books, it was Ghost that finds it and gives it to Jon. But then again, it's also from Jon's POV, so it kind of makes sense. If Jon's like, oh, hey, Sam's like, oh, look what I found, right? It's...
Right.
Yeah. So I thought that was a very good decision that they did in the show. And then you got Dolores Ed, and I believe that's Pip. The two of them with good old Samuel Tully helping him out, and they got the dragon glass stuff, the obsidian.
Yes, the obsidian.
Dragon glass.
All right, episode 10. There's a fight scene,
You can call it that.
I thought that the fight scene was well. I actually liked the fight scene between Corin and Jon. I thought it was pretty good comparatively, but I thought that they were going to use that as like, all right, Jon, I'm going to start a fight with you. Then you kill all the wildlings, and then we run away. And it was really just like, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna sacrifice myself so that you can get in good with the wildlings somehow. Oh, we didn't say that that Ygritte spared Jon Snow's life as like a repayment for not chopping her head off.
Oh,
that was important. That was important in episode 8 that we didn't say. But yeah, she did it to like spare his life. So yeah, Jon kills Corin. And like the Valyrian steel blade is cool, and I was like, maybe they are using a different sound for it.
Oh, nice! That's right. That was a good fight scene. That's right. That was a good fight scene.
That fight was cool.
Yes. It was one of the few fights the whole season, but it was very good.
Well, they learned that the best fighting in the show is the verbal sparring between people. Let's see here.
And then at the very end, Jon looks out and sees the wildling encampment, and it's vast and it's huge.
Huge. And you know what I said at that moment? I said, "No man's Raider." That's what I said.
No man's Raider.
I was kind of wondering if they were gonna like tease an actor coming in and like, yes, you must be Eddard's bastard or whatever, but they didn't do that, and I was a little sad. But,
yeah, I know. If you're going, that's a hard thing, because if you like the books, then there's no way Mance would be up there. He'd be in the encampment, of course, protected around. Like, he wouldn't just be out here meeting them, right? He's too important for that. But at the same time, for television, that would be really cool. Like, you see his footsteps. Oh, so I could go either way on that.
No, I thought that they would do something like that as like a fun teaser, but I don't have a problem with the way that they did that. I just I wasn't sure about Corin's motives. That was the only thing that I didn't get. Was like, I thought I wasn't sure what he was trying to do. That's it. But like I said, he's trying to get Jon to kill him so that Jon can get in good with the wildlings. So,
just like you said, right? You were wondering, is this going to be like Avatar? I remember you specifically said that last podcast. You're like, is this going to be sort of like an Avatar thing? And I had already read this part through Clash of Kings, and actually this is sort of mixing with Storm of Swords. Right. Which I'll discuss too. And so when you said that, I was like, should I tell him? Answer, yes, it's like Avatar.
I wonder what James Cameron was reading as he was prepping his movie.
Ferngully.
I guess it's safe to say that George R.R. Martin is a fan of Pocahontas, or Dances with Wolves, I guess would be the closest. All right. And then the last thing is Sam.
The final scene in the season.
The Whites and the White Walkers come in, and he stares at one, and he's like, "Oh my god!" But they don't do anything, and they start storming forward. And I remember this is where I'll give the showrunners credit. Is like they wanted to end the season on like a high, or like on something really engaging, and I think that they did it. I think choosing that to end the season on was a good idea. And it's weird because like in hindsight, it seems so obvious. Like as they were saying this, I was like, yeah, but this is so obviously like a good way to tease the next season. But then I was like, I've been around people who like, you're trying to figure something out specifically. And so the fact that they went with that was good on their part. Like, it seems obvious to us now, probably because it was so effective, but it seemed like the smartest thing to do. And yeah, I really appreciated that at the end. Like, it got me really engaged, and I was like, okay, this is really cool.
I would not have made that choice. I thought that was brilliant, and anything I could come up with for ending a season like that would not compare. I thought that was a great spot to end the season, because it's at the end of episode 10, which we should probably do like an overview about episode 10 too as well, because they wrapped up a bunch of storylines. They had a couple of threads moving forward, and then they had so of course Jon's captured, but like you said, there's also this other really big threat. But you actually see something more, because you see all the whites. Those are all the zombies moving forward, and then you see, which in the book they do call them White Walkers, but they call them the others. Then you see the others, and
others.
And that was actually the prologue it was adapted of the prologue of Storm of Swords. Now, the prologue of A Storm of Swords, I don't think that would have translated too well in television. It was sort of to kind of wrap up a storyline and then have the 3 horn blows where you're like, oh. So as opening for a book, it's a great opening for a book. Because you're like, oh, this is going to be like a major part of that book. And for a television show, yeah, I think ending the previous season with that as a prologue is a great way.
It's a good idea.
Yeah. Well done.
Well, they do it. I mean, if you think about it, they do it in books all the time, where they'll be like, "Oh, and here's a sample of the next book coming out in like 4 months," and you read that part and you're like, "Oh, it's the tease." But no, it was a good idea to have it. Like I said, and especially like they're already borrowing material from A Storm of Swords. So why not? Why not take it? It does make the season feel a little bit like because I had forgotten about the White Walkers, and so I think it also is a good idea, because it's like these things, they're still here, they're a threat. We haven't talked about them for 8 episodes or whatever, 7 episodes, 6 episodes, but they're still here, and they're still something that we need to be concerned about. So it's cool seeing it, and it pushes the stakes forward.
That's true. It raises the stakes. That's absolutely right. And and then at the whole time, right, you're like rooting for Robb, and now there's this giant threat from the north, and you're like, how is this going to unravel? There are all these different storylines, and they're all twisted and tangled, and this and that, and this is going. How is it all going to like unravel, and where we can, fit things together? Yeah.
Well, it just reminds me of like in A Game of Thrones, how in the book it's like there's this like small, like insular community that's constantly fighting, and I think they even addressed it in. They even address it in the episode. I think like Varys might say it or something, where it's like all of these insulated people are concerned about this, but there's these other threats, and these other threats are so much more significant, and they're huge.
That was inside the episode.
Oh, okay. That was inside the episode. Okay, well, never mind.
It was. Yeah, because they were like, "Here's this," and then all the borders are what's scary.
And that's the first book in a nutshell. Is like, look at all of these petty people, and there's an existential threat that's much bigger.
Yes,
that's coming, and the people on the wall know it's coming. And this is just like reiterating that. Like, can you believe how petty everyone is here? But there's still this huge thing out there. So how does the play out in the books?
So last time I think that we talked,
Jon Snow.
Jon and the group of scouts and rangers, they went out. They found the wildlings. They killed a couple. They all leave. Jon's with Ygritte. He lets Ygritte go. Jon rejoins them. And then they're still scouting forward. And then it's weird. It's just what happens is a little weird, because Jon falls asleep, and then he sees Bran as a weirwood tree. And then he sees a third eye open on his forehead. And all of a sudden, and then Jon is looking around, and he's like, where am I? He's actually in Ghost's body. So he's walking around as Ghost, and he looks around, and then he looks out, and then that's where he sees the wildling encampment. So at the time I was watching, I wasn't sure if they were going to show any wildling encampment. But it's huge. And it was totally set up, the rest of the books, because as they started going north of the wall, they noticed all these wildling villages were completely bare. There was nobody there. There's nobody anywhere. Where are all the wildlings?
Right.
All these villages are totally deserted. It's a ghost town. It was very eerie, right? Very scary to read. And it's because they've all gathered. And so now you see them, they're all gathered. But it's not just the wildlings. There's giants. There's mammoths. There's all these strange, weird creatures. Like, there's bears. And there's just, whoa. There's a lot of them. A lot. I don't know if it's 100,000, but it might be around there. There's a lot of wildlings. And
all under Mance Raider?
Yeah, not all soldiers. You don't really know that, though, right? You just see this huge encampment with giants, mammoths, and just a bunch of stuff. And you know that he was searching for a power in the Frost Fangs, which is a mountain range. And the rumor is that he did find a power in the Frost Fangs. And so you're wondering, what is that? And one of the theories I had when I was reading it, I know what it is now, but when I was reading it, I was thinking, is he finding some way to control these White Walkers and the Whites? Did he get that kind of power? Anyways, I hope the show doesn't reveal it.
Okay.
For a little bit.
If they even talk about the power at all. Anyway, go on.
It's a part. It plays a role. But so he sees that, and then he looks up and he sees this eagle. And the whole time you're set up reading this, knowing that Bran can enter Summer's body, and it's called a warg. So Jon's kind of a warg, and he looks up and he sees this eagle come down at him. Jon is in Ghost's body, but he sees this eagle come down and attack him, and the eagle was totally a warg as well. It was known that it was a warg, and so Jon snapped out of Ghost's body, and he tells Qhorin what happened, and the other crows, which are the wildlings called the members of the Night Watch, the Black. He tells Qhorin, hey, this is what I saw, and then an eagle attacked me. And Qhorin is like, we got GTFO right now. We got to get back to the bear. We got to do this right now. And other people are looking at Jon going this is just a dream. Unbelievable. It's just a dream. Who cares? But when Qhorin's no, we're getting out of here right now. Everybody's oh, wow. Qhorin, okay.
Qhorin's worried. We need to be worried.
Right. And then they just believe it. All of a sudden, this whole I don't know about magic. No, 100% they all believe it. They all know what's going on because weird stuff happens. Right? There are wargs. These things are real. Nobody believes it, especially not in Westeros, but up here they do. It's part of their life. Right. So they go back, and then they start all the rangers get picked off one by one. Some stay back. One brilliant archer stays back, and they all know they're going to die. But they keep going back. Pretty soon, it's just Jon and Qhorin. Just the two of the rangers. Mm-hmm. And Qhorin looks at Jon and says, be one of them. Learn their ways. Figure out what they're doing. And whatever they tell you to do, you must not balk. Like in baseball, right? Don't balk. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you must not balk. You have to do what they say. Commit to it. And when the moment is right and you find a weak point, that's when you strike. I don't know what it is, but that's what you're going to have to do. And whatever you do, you must do what they ask. Do not balk. And so the wildlings catch up to him. Just the two of them. And they look at him and they just, they say, all right, fine, and Jon's all right, I'm going to be a part of you, wildlings. And they're oh, really? Prove it. Kill Qhorin. And that's when Jon and Qhorin fight. And Ghost comes up and bites Qhorin's leg, and that's when Jon takes him out through a throat strike. And Jon is, of course, wrestling with the fact that he just killed one of the greatest rangers. and he's doing what they told him because that's what Corran told him to do. So he's kind of a mole, but he's got all these super conflicting emotions. Did Jon have to do it? No. He was arguing too, like, no, we can make it. Maybe let's go back. And so, stories are made by the characters' decisions, and Jon made the decision to trust in Corran, do what he says, and become part of him.
Unlike the show where things just happen to Jon.
I don't really know why they changed it for the show. I would have to. I really don't know. I've been racking my mind about that. Like, why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they following the source material? I don't know. I don't think I enjoyed the book's storyline much better. I just don't know why they didn't do it for the show. Maybe it wasn't cinematic enough for television. Maybe they couldn't string it along over 3 episodes.
The only thing I can think of, and like again, the show tends to be really bad with their like time efficiency in a lot of regards. The only thing I can think of is like I was gonna say cost wise, but having 2 people look through the wolf, especially when you haven't seen Bran do it in a while, might have confused people. So it's like making sure to set up all of these things beforehand. But like if Jon was looking through Ghost, it would be really hard to tell unless they, created a visual language. I don't know. It is really strange. It might have just been a budgetary thing, because to have the looking through Ghost and then seeing the eagle and then having the eagle attack, creating a whole new tree with Bran's face on it. I don't know. We'll see how this affects the show going forward, like what changes they need to make going forward. I don't know. Like, as fun as it is to see Ygritte and Jon like kind of banter, I don't know. I know that Alia really likes Ygritte, because the actor, like a lot of people like the actress because she's feisty, I guess, and she was also in Downton Abbey, but I don't know. It's I don't know. It felt like that's a lot of spinning plates to me.
That's one thing else that I actually have an issue with the show is that, and of course I'm at a this is sort of what it is, right? Like when you read, you visualize things the way you want to. And I imagine Ygritte having much more character than the show. My Ygritte say, "Oh, you know nothing, Jon Snow." Sort of like light, playful, that kind of thing. And the show just, "Oh, you know nothing, Jon Snow." And,
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
I'll give you my impression of Jack and Hagar when we get to Aria.
Maybe it's something that'll develop later on, because I know that like I said, a lot of people like Ygritte, so maybe we'll see what's going on with that as it goes. Maybe it just was like the first impression of her, like I guess the most like I was gonna say I think the most like fun character-y moment type thing is like she's like, "Oh, is that your bastard sword, or are you just happy to see me?" And he's like, that's the other thing is like Jon's so standoffish and like awkward. Like,
I know.
Like, oh, okay.
Okay. Well played.
Okay. So I don't know.
The conversations that were happening take place in the next season when they're together. So maybe the reason why they went against it is because they wanted more screen time for the actress, or actor, I guess is the more correct term to use for Ygritte.
But it does feel like a waste of potential. Maybe they'll introduce some of those elements in the next season, but it feels like a waste of potential. And it's possible that like if they were filming in a cold area and not on a set, I don't know where they were filming it, but if they were filming it in like Iceland or something, or on a cold area, they might have only had a limited amount of daylight that they could shoot, and they reorganized it. I don't know.
I don't know. I think the reason why I bring this up is because it was very clear to me in the books about the motivation of Jon, why he did what they did, why he fought with Qhorin, and you were a little bit confused while watching the show, like, well, what's kind of going on here, you know? Maybe Qhorin and Jon will band up and like attack the others, but George R. R. Martin has said that he thinks it's kind of silly when, we got a group of 6 friends and they go into this giant fight and they all make it out fine, unscathed. And he's like, that's no. And so with that type of realism, there's just 2 of them with, 10 to 15 wildlings. There's no way the 2 of them could make it out because they got archers. What if one gets wounded? So I don't think they could have fought their way through if they were captured like that. Plus, they've been marching for days and they're super tired and worn out.
I mean, the thing is like, but the thing about those situations is like the reason why we believe them isn't because we believe that, not always, that we believe that they're the stronger forces. The reason we believe it is because it's a surprise attack. Like if Qhorin is attacking Jon, everyone is surprised. And then, they give the cohort and they're like, all right, now run. And, they go separate directions. Then the archers have to choose. And this and that and that. I don't know. I just thought, I was just very confused as to why, he had started attacking him. And again, Qhorin attacks Jon. So we're talking about taking agency and choice out of the character.
Right.
But Jon does decide to commit the killing blow. So I guess you could say it's brought back. It was just very strange to me. I don't know. I felt, I don't know.
It felt weird. It felt forced in the show. And in the books, it was just very organic. He had a choice to make. He could either commit to being a member of the Night's Watch and not be a Turncloak, or he could kill Qhorin. And he, on Qhorin's orders. And so he did it. And Qhorin probably knew that was going to happen when he gave the order. And it's just, it was very, very clear in the book. And the decision was very clear in the book. And, you don't have to be exact. You could adapt, right? Like maybe the Rangers saw it instead of going through Ghost. Maybe the Rangers saw the actual wildling encampment and then they ran back. Like that they could have done that instead of the whole Weirwood and Ghost perspective. There were just again, right? We question what they did, the decisions they made. That was a big time question I had. Like, why'd they do it this? I don't know. Still figuring it out.
I actually, going back to the Maester in Winterfell, is his death in the book?
Yes.
Okay.
He does.
Did it happen similarly?
It does. He has a last conversation. Yeah.
He has the last conversation, and then he's killed kind of surprised. Because, that one took me off guard, but I was also like, I don't know, maybe with all of these deaths, I'm going to be like, yeah, that makes sense. But, when he died, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I didn't necessarily, I kind of saw it coming, but didn't necessarily see it coming. It felt like a lot of, we're closing things out in a way that we don't have to. But, yeah.
It was tragic. It was good.
It was a good death. It felt earned.
Mm-hmm. Could I give you some of that milk of the poppy?
Yes.
No.
I was thinking
milk of the poppy.
Can I give you the milk of the poppy?
No milk of the poppy.
I was like, oh my god. No, Lucas, why?
No, there it is. Milk of the poppy.
All right.
Should we move on from I'm good Jon? On Jon. Yeah. I'm good moving on from Jon.
Should we talk about Daenerys?
Yeah. Let's talk about Daenerys.
Let's get this out of the way.
Let's get this out of the way. So in my notes I wrote episode 7. I wrote Payat Pri? No, Payat Pri.
No, Payat Pri.
Yeah. All of a sudden they had the 13 people in the spice kick. And then all of a sudden you have all these Payat Pries just out of nowhere. Oh, look at me. I also wrote on here he's a Mad Max character. I think the blue lips and the bald head, and then maybe some of the music, and you're waiting for that guy on electric guitar. But I think Payat Pri is just some kind of Mad Max character. He's just you must now go to the House of the Undying. Oh, Payat Pri.
Yeah, what was it? Jorah was like, she was like, find my dragon, find the dragons, and so Jorah
Find
was
the
like,
dragons.
he was like, yes, Khaleesi, and then he like found the warlock or whatever, and he's like, where are her dragons? And then they were like, oh, the one who has the dragons is with her already. I have a note in here. It says, when did Jorah betray Daenerys? They were like, you betrayed Daenerys. And I was like, when? When did Jorah betray Daenerys?
That is revealed in the books in Storm of Swords.
Okay.
So I don't know how much detail.
No, my unproblematic favorite is not going to be my unproblematic favorite anymore, is he?
At the time when you said that, when I was reading it, where I was at Storm of Swords, I was like, oh yeah, Jorah's fine. Now where I'm at, I'm like, he's still alive. I'll just keep it there.
Well, I guess here's another question. Are you still loving Tyrion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
There are things that I've heard happen in the books in the future that make me nervous about Tyrion. Things that happen, things that are well, anyway, we've already covered so many things that like they change in the show and then have to walk back. But all right, so Jorah betrayed her at some point in the future, and then I have blue-lipped magic user, because like he randomly just starts like appearing everywhere, and then they kill all of the 13. Are we gonna go through all of her storyline, and then like we did with Jon, where we go through the 3 episodes and then go back and you explain what happens in the book? Should we do that?
I can tell you what happens in the books right now. This doesn't happen at all. This is very, very different. Very different. They clearly made... Okay, the books is not very exciting at this point. She is talking with Jaro Joan Daxos. And they're wondering about this, they're wondering about that, and then they realize that if they get married, I get one of his things, and he gets one of my things. It could be anything. And that's why he wants to marry her, is because he could get a dragon. Clearly, that's it. That's all he cares about. Obviously, they did not do that in the show. Instead, they have her dragons be taken. But yeah, they didn't know what to do. And in the books, what happens is that Daenerys remembers the comet, and the comet led her to Karth. And in Karth, she knows Pyat Pri is a warlock, and so she goes to the House of the Undying on her own vocation. On her own. She wants to go there, not because the dragons are there, but she goes there because she's looking for answers. And so, yes, very different. No 13 deaths. How lucky. And somehow Jaro Joan Daxos evades that.
Because in the show, Jaro Joan Daxos evades it because he makes a deal with Pyat Pri that he can be the new king of Karth. That's what happened there.
That's right. Okay. There's no vault either.
Well, as it's revealed, we will comment on that freaking vault in a second. All right, so they kill all of them, and let's move on to episode 8. Do I have notes for episode 8?
Do I have notes for episode 8?
On episode 8, let's see.
I don't. What was I doing in episode 8? I got nothing for Daenerys in here.
She might not have been on episode 8. Let me see here.
She had a 2-episode hiatus?
In Karth, Daenerys refuses to flee Karth without her dragons. Jorah reluctantly takes her to the House of Undying. Why even have that in the episode? Like, why?
Well, because if they don't, then it's a 2-episode hiatus. Because she wouldn't be in 9, she'd be in 10. So that might be why.
That's true. That's the other thing we don't really talk about is like contract obligations for like episodes served. Like that might be digging into it as well. But it also just like it also just seems weird. Like if that's the reason why they have so much jumping around, that seems weird.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about episode 10.
Let's do it. Okay.
So she goes inside the temple.
Sorry, real quick before.
Go ahead.
On episode 9, I watched a sneak peek to episode 10, and I just couldn't help laughing because they showed Jorah looking up in the air going, Khaleesi! And then that was like, oh my gosh, oh no, Jorah's yelling at Khaleesi. And so my notes for season 2, episode 10, I wrote Karth. Sigh. Just... But yeah, he looks up, Khaleesi! It's just like, oh my god. Like, I'm sorry. I love cheesy, but like that was too much.
Yeah,
Sorry if I stole your thunder on that one.
No. No, because like they have that one guy that you thought was dead, and he's not dead, and you recognize the last episode. I can't remember his name. Her buddy, the other Dothraki soldier that's like super loyal.
Rakara lives.
Yeah. So she like, and then she's walking around the temple, and then she disappears, and then he Khaleesi, and then she like goes into a room, and it's like wintry, and there's the Iron Throne, and then she sees Khal Drogo, and they talk, and then she sees the blue-lipped wizard, and and for some reason, like even though Jorah couldn't kill him with like a sword, I don't know if his sword's Valyrian steel, I doubt it, but Jorah couldn't kill him with a sword. But then he reveals like, because the dragons are born, magic is back. And then she like goes from like a normal person to like the stoic face of, like she takes on her golden crown face. He was not, and they burn Pyat Pri to death, and I was like, wait, so fire would have killed him, but the sword didn't? Like, could they have just like slapped like a pillar of fire on him or something? And apparently those small dragons are like powerful enough that like one of them can like deal like 50% damage, so all three of them just unload on him and Pyat Pri die. And I'm like, why did we waste time with this guy at all? And then she gets
well, to be fair, I play Magic user in Dungeons and Dragons, and the dragon's breath weapon just destroys poor Navathar.
Yeah, but like this is a baby dragon. Like
they are tiny baby dragons. That's true. That's true.
Now they do say that like if she's closer to them, like apparently it's like a proximity thing. Like as long as you're within 10 feet, and if you're within 2 feet, but
power rises exponentially.
So they die. Apparently, what I heard, Zaro, Zoa, and Daxos in the book. Like, I was reading. I don't know if you know this yet, or if he's even still in the books. But like, I guess like, I was reading some of the behind the scenes in the books. He's like white and he's gay.
Yes, he's only.
Okay.
It's very. They don't really talk about the his race or ethnicity, but he's more of transactional. He may not be gay. He may even be just asexual.
Okay.
Just not, clearly it's not about desire for him. It's about marriage to Daenerys is about getting a dragon. That's it. That's what he desires.
So I guess in this, the big twist was they had to get rid of Doria, and so they made Doria be the person who ratted her out. So bye-bye hot servant character.
Bye-bye Doria.
Had less and less to do. I'm sad.
Yeah,
I liked Doria, but...
Yeah, me too.
And again, that moment where they shove him into the vault and like close the door on them, I'm like... That's pretty awesome, but also like poor Doria.
That's what Daenerys would have done in the books.
Yeah.
That's very true to character. I thought that was very true to character. But yeah, and when the dragons launch their fire, it's one of those things that you kind of forgot, but she's immune to fire. So she wouldn't get burned or singed or anything. Like, it was fine. Like, yeah, just shoot the fireballs, and then that was it. So that was pretty cool. I don't know if you thought that was anticlimactic, because Pyat Pri's only trick is to just multiply.
You like that in the book too?
No, he does nothing in the books. Nothing.
So he does
absolutely
nothing.
He's got no powers. He does even less. He's got no powers. It's just that the warlocks were supposed to be this incredible powerhouse, but then they just don't have any powers. And in the books, he still doesn't have any powers. And there was so she goes to the House of the Undying because she's run out of options. She doesn't know what to do. And she needs an army, she needs ships, this kind of thing. She's not going towards her goal. So she goes to the House of the Undying to gain guidance. So Pyat Pri's only too excited to tell her what to do. Always take the first door on the left, always. So she walks in, takes the first door on the left. There's another room with 4 doors. First door on the left. And she keeps doing this over and over and over. And she takes one of her dragons with her. But she does this over and over and over again and again and again. And then they said that. And then when you get to a room, you do something else. Well, she starts seeing these visions. And she does see Khal Drogo. And then I thought they were going to do this in the show. She sees her brother Rhaegar. Her famed brother Rhaegar. Yeah. This is the one who is going to be an amazing, amazing king. You had the Mad King Aerys. One of his sons was Rhaegar. And, of course, Daenerys is a brother. And Viserys, they're all brothers and sisters. But, yeah. And Rhaegar, the history is, right? Robert took his giant warhammer to Rhaegar's chest and killed him on the tridents. And you also see Rhaegar's kids, who also died at the hands of Sir Gregor Clegane, the mountain that rides, killed him. So she sees them, and she's just like, there's just a ton of emotion. She wants to go there, but she's also like, it's fake, it's fake, it's fake. Keeps going. Does her thing, and she sees Drogo, but she's like, no, it's fake, it's fake. She's very, single-minded, focused, and that was really cool to read. So then she goes, and she meets with the Undying. These are these people, or these spirits or something, that are sitting around a table, and she's been given these prophecies, just one after the other after the other. She's going to be betrayed 3 times. She's gonna love 3 times. She's going to do something 3 times. Just prophecy after prophecy after prophecy, and then at the end she I forgot how she gets out. I didn't look it over again. I'm just sort of remembering, this is just the forefront of my mind. And she does go out, and she realizes that she was going to get attacked and was going to get trapped inside the House of the Undying. So she does kill Pyat Pri.
How did she realize that she was gonna? How did she realize she was gonna die? Right, that's right. You can't remember.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
I didn't go back and review that one, but
it's okay. It leaves me something to read about. So do you like the way that they handled it in the show?
If I saw Rhaegar, but I didn't.
Or the prophecies.
That is not the last Daenerys chapter in Clash of Kings. They're clearly saving one more chapter of Daenerys for the next season. And this is where I think is kind of interesting about the showrunners, is because there's certain things that happen at the end of Clash of Kings, but then there's things that happen at the beginning of Storm of Swords that are at the end of season 2. And then there's things that are happening in Clash of Kings that are going to be pushed ahead into the 3rd season.
Right.
One of the big things happens is that Daenerys gets another assassination attempt on her life. And she's introduced to 2 other characters. And I can understand why they wouldn't want to do this at the end of season 2. Is because you're introduced to 2 characters, who cares? But now they're part of her party. Okay. you know,
So
and then of course they play a big role.
I don't know if one of the two characters is this, but I know that Pedro Pascal is known for being in Game of Thrones. So I don't know if he's one of the two characters.
He is not. He is not. You're not going to see Pedro Pascal until maybe middle. I think he might even be in the next. He might even be in the season after.
How do you know? Because you looked ahead. Because you saw who he was on the cast list.
My wife told me that the Mandalorian's in it.
Oh, okay.
And then I was talking about certain characters, and she was like, "Oh, that's him." I was like, "Oh, okay."
I should stop trying to like dance around and like hint at things because it's just gonna be ruined for you. It's fine. Someone else will ruin it.
It's fine. Yeah, I know.
Whatever.
Okay. Actors playing characters doesn't ruin it for me. Although Mance Rayder's a little older than I thought. We'll see how he's acted. We'll see how he's played. We'll see how he's played.
Well, I'm gonna ruin something for you. All right. I don't know who he plays, but apparently the actor who plays as Winston in John Wick is in the show. So.
All right.
So you.
I don't know who he plays either.
I don't know who he plays. The one last thing I have about Daenerys's storyline in the show is watching the inside the episode. I wrote down a note. The writers see themselves as Dani. They became more self-reliant and knew that they couldn't just like inherit things from what the people said as they progressed with the show. So like the first couple of seasons, they're obviously relying on the books, but then as they go, they feel like they can branch out and do things on their own. I mean, even this season, they have a whole storyline for Daenerys that basically just like, and especially according to you, is probably just like a giant circle. Like this is a cul-de-sac of.
It was filler, man. It was filler.
So people who liked this storyline in Game of Thrones and did not like The Last Jedi because of the Finn storyline, go ahead and give yourselves a slap. But all of those people who didn't like the Finn storyline and couldn't figure out why, it's because it was what happened to Daenerys in this season, but just done in like in 2 hours as opposed to like 4 episodes. Because that's what happened is like they're like, oh, she became less self-reliant, or she became less reliant on others and realized that she has to do things for herself. And I was like, but isn't that where she was supposed to end things at? Like, isn't that the whole point of like lighting everyone on fire and then walking into the fire and then emerging with these dragons? And I realized, no, that's just her showing command in the minds of the writers. So anyway, I think metaphorically we will see if the writers project themselves going forward as Daenerys. Do you have anything else about Daenerys' storyline?
I mentioned this last time. I'm going to mention it again because that's how much I hated it when they said it inside the episode. When they were like, oh, when Daenerys' dragons were taken, she turns back into that little girl again. That was always very scary. Of that. And it just upset me so much. I got to bring that up again. No, by the way, when Daenerys had her own child threatened, she turned into a super fierce mama bear. She turned into, in the books too. And that first season follows the book very carefully. Like they followed the source material very closely. And in the books, she immediately said Viserys was the man who used to be my brother. No love for him. Just she became very steely, very hard, very like survival mode. And that's how I felt she would have done with the dragons. I don't think she would have turned into that little girl that Viserys used to abuse. So again, it bothered me so much about that. And she did seem a little desperate there, and that's okay. Like I thought that the actress really portrayed the character well.
Yeah, she's great. She's great. Emilia Clarke is awesome.
She seems to have a beat on the character pretty well, but that remains to be seen for the next season. Let's see if the character develops the way it happens in the books for the third one. So
yeah, I mean, I hope it's fine.
sorry,
why
real quick.
I recognize him. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything more to add about Daenerys other than they're pushing some of her story back, which of course makes it interesting. Why did George R. Martin include that chapter in Clash of Kings when it could have been pushed ahead to Storm of Swords? Sort of, I don't know, just interesting discussions. Like, these are things that I would like to discuss with them about it.
Well, to me, it's also like, why did George R. R. Martin keep Game of Thrones going for another like 200 pages after he kills Ned? But I'm sure you're at this point used to like huge set piece things happening midway through the book, and then the book kind of like tailing out for another 200 pages.
This one felt like a very good end. It did not feel like in the first book where I was like, oh, it just like keeps going. This one felt very
Clash of Kings.
definite. Clash of Kings. It felt very definitely paced, very definite ending. Same with Storm of Swords. Very definite pacing, very definite ending. I thought it's one of the best books I've ever read, Storm of Swords.
So the only thing I'll say about not adding new characters at the end is because you don't want to have to cast some, although they did that in Game of Thrones, but you don't want to have to cast someone midway through the season or near the end of the season and then have to commit to them for the next season. It's like, well, we have to introduce characters. Let's just wait until next time, is my guess.
Right. 100% agree. And I don't think it
doesn't make sense why they spun so many plates or changed Daenerys' storyline so much to me. I don't know that. I don't understand that.
Her story was more like mentally interesting because she wasn't sure what to do. She had this, and Karth was really... It was a lot about like survival. So, I think because I know what happens in the books, I was like, whatever, about what happened to her dragons. Yeah. But a viewer who doesn't know probably would watch the dragon getting thieved storyline and was probably very invested in it. Probably very like, oh no, her dragon. So it's her babies. Like it's her son all over again. Like, this is really scary. So I actually thought it was pretty good. To put that in there.
That is not the impression I've got from you for the last two recordings we've had.
Fair enough. If I didn't know what was going to happen.
Fair enough, but you watched all of Lost, and Lost had storylines that went nowhere. And having these dragon, like even if I guess the other thing is like the end point is the same. What are you trying to do differently? And the different thing that they're showing is like Daenerys becomes scared little girl, and then she doesn't when she gets her dragons back, which is like
season 1 all over again.
I don't know. As soon as you told me like this isn't what happened in the book, then I knew that like they couldn't. I'm sure they're going to do some things that are drastically different. They already have done things that are drastically different. I didn't care about the dragons being stolen. I don't know.
I didn't either.
Maybe it's because you were like, this doesn't happen in the book, and I was like, I don't know if I can bring myself to care about this then.
You know, that's what I mean. Like, I personally didn't care about it, but somebody who didn't read the books, invest in the character, probably did care about the story. So I can't speak for others who'd watch it. My wife probably was very interested in it, but I kind of checked out.
Well, the other thing is like, okay, so like the Daenerys storyline, it didn't focus on her a lot in the show in the same way that it probably could have if they had gone the way of the book. There's ways to visually represent it so that you could do what's done in the book probably. And I don't know, it just feels like such a cul-de-sac. Like, if you want to evolve her character, see what the point was of those scenes in the book, and then create a new visual way to do it in the show. Do you feel like they did that? Because if they did that, then they succeeded. And if they didn't do that, then it was just like wasting time. Because like they had these scenes, or you just push, I don't know. But anyway,
That's it. Because I feel like it's I don't know. Okay. So I know I keep pausing. I'm very. This is a good question. That's why this is a really good question.
So that's the question. If you're adapting source material to a movie, that's the question you need to ask. What was the point of this scene in the book? Do we need it in the movie? Can we convey it in a different way in the movie?
It's hard because what they did in the show is okay. If Daenerys in the next season acts like the same Daenerys from the books, then I think it's a loss for the show. Okay. Because the show had her lose her dragons for a second, and that would give her the fear of the seven gods, the old and the new, and the Lord of Light. Like it would give the fear of all the pantheon of the world in her, because they got stolen once. She got betrayed, and they got stolen, and it was extremely traumatic. Right, and sort of reliving some of her other trauma. That is, but obviously, I've said before, it doesn't happen in the books. So she actually underwent more character development in the show than she did in the book, because of that big event that happened to her. So that is why I say, if in season 3 her character acts, behaves, thinks the same as her character in Storm of Swords does, then it's a loss for the show, because she underwent a very dramatic character change in the TV show that she didn't do in the books. So she would be acting differently. Might even be slightly different. So I think that's something to look forward. If they follow the source material super closely in Storm of Swords, but her character acts a little bit different, then then like I'm on board with it. But if her character acts the same, does the same actions, proceeds the exact same way as she does in the books, and doesn't really make it, if it is truly filler, it never gets referenced again. If it's true filler. So that might be something to think about or to recognize in the coming seasons, is if they bring it up again that her dragons got captured before. If they bring it up again, and it's like, okay, I feel like they did justice to that whole storyline. Right, it was significant, but an event like that did not happen in the books. So it's really hard for me to weigh the question, because there's an extreme amount of character development in the show. Yeah.
Okay. So let's move on.
Sorry about my winded answer. Absolutely.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm like looking at the time that we've been talking.
I know.
We have huge steps we need to take here still. Okay. Let's go to Jaime's story quickly.
Yeah. All right.
So he begins in the camp, doesn't he? And he's tried to escape. And
right. So he's in the camp, and he meets somebody, and he convinces him to help escape. He does escape, but they catch him and they bring him back into camp again, and he's locked up. And this is in episode 7, and he's locked up again. And at the end of the episode, Caitlin is looking at Brienne and says, "Brienne, your sword." And that's where the episode cuts on Jaime's story.
Right. Didn't he...
For episode 7.
Didn't he also kill someone in episode 7? Like, they bring the dude, his cousin, in or whatever, and he strangles his cousin?
Nope. Not in the book.
No. In the show, he strangles his cousin to death, and then that causes the other guy to come in. He kills that guy and runs away. They recapture him. They bind him and gag him. So they had that humanizing moment for Jaime Lannister. I have two notes here. I have that there was a humanizing moment, and then I have I thought that Jaime wanted death. That's why he's like escaping the camp in the way that he's doing it, is like he's encouraging them to kill him. Like he does not want to live. He would rather them just kill him. But then the writers are like, well, Jaime's a bloodlusting monster. Like the only thing he cares about is fighting in war. And I have a note here, and I say, why didn't they set that up more in the first season? Because I felt like that should have been something that we knew in the first season. But they say in that, and maybe it's just because it sticks in my mind, they have that episode where he's talking with, where he's fighting with Eddard, and he's like, and Jaime starts fighting Eddard, and he thinks it's a game, and then he realizes it's real. And I'm like, but he's a bloodlusting monster according to you guys. So like, what is it? Also, Jaime spent this entire season in a prison camp. Anyway.
Yep. That's what happens when you get captured in war in medieval times. You're just stuck there for a really, really long time.
Yeah. He doesn't, you said he doesn't escape and get recaptured in the book?
No. Remember, book 2 is Tyrion's book. Tyrion hires a sellsword group to go and try to break him out. And they do break him out, but then he gets recaught. So
How?
There is...
I guess they don't cover that
screen.
in Clash of Kings. Okay.
Off page, I should say. But then they put him, they just put him back, right? And they're like, okay, let's they double the guards or whatever. And this doesn't even happen in the fields. This happens in River Run. And when we get to Caitlyn, I got a kind of a bone to pick, but I will stay myself.
So then let's just go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
My only other thing about this is that Jaime is very misunderstood by a lot of people. Because George R. R. Martin, he hides his hand well. You don't know what he's thinking the whole time. No, Jaime Lannister is not a bloodlusting monster, unless that's D.B. Weiss and Benioff's way of sort of leading the viewer astray, giving him a red herring, which I don't think is a good idea. Yeah, he's incredibly misunderstood. But in Storm of Swords, this is where this kind of actually picks up right here. He's a changed man after his time in captivity. He's had a lot of time to think. And he's smart. He's not going to try to escape on his own. Like you said, did he have a death wish? No! He doesn't have a death wish. He wants to get back to Cersei. That's what he wants to do. He wants to get back to Cersei. That's it. That's his, focus. And if he goes out there and tries to escape, he's going to die. So I don't think he escaped on his own. It's Tyrion's book. Tyrion tries to get his brother out because he loves his brother so much. Doesn't work. Jaime's recaptured. Caitlyn knows that Rickon and Bran are dead. She comes in to free Jaime. But you don't know that. You think that maybe she just wants revenge because her sons are dead. So she's like, Brienne, give me your sword. And there's one thing about Jaime that I know happens to him. So I thought, oh, is this when it happens? And of course, that's when Clash of Kings ends. That's when Clash of Kings ends. It ends right there. So I had no idea. Until Jaime's perspective, in the first chapter in Storm of Swords. My last thing I've got between Caitlyn and Jaime is that the conversation that happens between Caitlyn and Jaime is a little bit different in the books, obviously. Jaime, she gets Jaime drunk. At first he doesn't want to. He's actually very, focused about it. But then he gets drunk and he just says, whatever. I'm just going to drink, whatever. And then he starts flapping his mouth just about a bunch of other stuff. He is super, I have it here in my notes. I reread the conversation. He's super vile in the books. So vile. It's so bad reading it. You're just like, oh my gosh. He reveals that he tossed Bran out the window. Did he do that in the show? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
But he does have the line, I'm past caring what other people think of me. He also talks, which I love that line. I think right there, he made a huge character change, right there. He talks about, like I said, the conversation goes on. And I think this would have been a really great thing to have. They have time constraints, I understand. They could cut out the Raws scenes and put this in there if they wanted. But they didn't. He talks about Brandon Stark, that's Ned's brother, and also how Ned's father died. And in the books, Caitlyn's like, I don't want to know. So Rickard is the father. He wanted trial by combat. And Aerys the Mad King said, okay, your combatant is fire. And so Brandon, the brother, had this horrible device around his neck. And if he got to the sword, he could cut down his father and save his father's life. But as he tried to reach for the sword, he was getting strangled. So he died trying to reach the sword. So that's Ned's brother died trying to get to the sword. And Rickard's body he just started cooking inside his armor because he was floating above fire. And Targaryens are like, who cares? Fire, like, we're fine with fire. Like, you're not, but we're okay with it. And yeah, totally tells Caitlyn all that stuff. We don't get to hear it in the show. I know the actor for Jaime could pull that off. 100%.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%.
100%.
So, one of the videos that we're going to talk about at the end, after we watch everything, does comment on understanding and misunderstanding Jaime Lannister. So, just in case you were wondering. So, but we have to wait till we're done watching the whole show before you can even watch it. Okay.
Brienne of Tarth?
Yeah, should we jump to episode 8?
Let's do it.
Let's see.
Was he in 8?
Brienne, they were.
I
think they like boarded a boat and started rowing, and he was like insulting her, and I think that's it. I think that's.
Because of where I am in the books, I'll have you know that Brienne puts on such a brave face, but those words cut deep. And then you got episode 10.
You can tell in the show.
Okay.
Like, I think she does a good job of
she's
like weathering the storm. She's good. All of the actors are picked very, very carefully for the most part.
Yeah.
No Stannis. All right, episode 10.
Yeah.
Brienne is awesome when she takes down all of those guys. I thought that was.
Yes.
I thought that was a cool scene. Like, he starts off like, talking, and then he's like, "Oh, these are, they see the hung women, and Jaime uses that as an opportunity to try and like get her riled up. Like I said, it feels like he has a death wish." Tries to get her riled up, and then she's like gonna cut him down. He's like, no, that's a bad idea. And then like when things turn, they have to become like temporary allies until they get to the point where like one of the guys is like, no, that's the Kingslayer. If he's not the Kingslayer, say his name, but say him at the same time. And I was like, ooh, that's really cool. And then her just like taking all of them out. I was like, oh, this is awesome.
It's awesome. It's 100% awesome.
It was a great scene, which is probably why I was like, yeah, Jaime has a storyline in here. Her way of like slow killing the other guy, though, I was like, it's a little bit slower, but I mean, also going back to like the show as like one of the more violent shows, you see that in the 9th episode, kind of. But in this episode, there's a lot more left to the imagination, and I think it's done in a very like smart way, where it's like she shoves her sword somewhere, you kind of know where, and then they just focus.
You know exactly where that is.
Shove it further. They let the sound design do the trick, and it's great. And so again, it's better most times to not show something graphic, as we will see in Blackwater with a couple of the kills in there. It's better to not show something and kind of let your ears do the talking, because when you hear something that's violent and don't see it, in your head it can look so much worse. So
that's very, very true. I've got one question for you, and I actually only have one final thought about Jaime and Brienne's storyline. So My question for you is, did you feel like Brienne is totally a character from Japanese mythology? Like a samurai, so noble and extremely honorable, traveling with this prisoner, taking down these 3 fighters, and I just feel like it's very like a Japanese storyline, like from ancient 1400s feudal Japan.
Yeah, I always like it when you pull these references because I'm like, oh yeah, it is kind of fun to recontextualize it, and especially when you do, I kind of like wish they lean more into that kind of an art design. But yeah, I feel like Brienne is like, I was gonna say, I feel like Brienne is like Theon if Theon made better choices in life,
but with the sword versus the bow, like Theon.
Oh yeah, Theon has a bow. Yeah, no, Brienne's the best because she has a sword and she's tall and she's cool and she kicks a lot of butt and she's honorable, and I like the fact that she's like, I don't serve the Starks, I serve Lady Catelyn. I don't serve the Starks, I serve Lady Catelyn. Yes, they can be 2 different things. As a math person, I thought you'd appreciate that.
I did. Well, I appreciate her character all around.
So yeah, no, I never thought of that. That's kind of like an interesting thing. Yeah.
And my last thought on the Jaime Brienne story, because I've got millions of things to say about Jaime, but they can wait, and they will wait.
Okay.
My last thing though about it is in Storm of Swords, Catelyn has an idiot brother, and he'll be around in the next season, for sure. But this idiot brother is really upset at what Catelyn did. So he sends people out to get Jaime and Brienne. And he sends out a ship and a boat. And in Storm of Swords, this boat, Brienne takes it down all by herself.
So awesome. It's just like...
It's awesome.
Like, they did Loras dirty because they're always like, oh, he's such a good swordsman, he's such a good fighter, but he like loses to everyone. It's nice to see that like they're not doing Brienne dirty. It's also nice to see like a character like Brienne where she's just like, I think the showrunners must really love Brienne because it's like everything they ever wanted in a female character. I don't know, it is a very like 1990s 2000s feminist character of like, you know, which I don't.
Yes,
I don't think
and no. To borrow your quote, yes and no. Yes and no.
Well, just because it's like, I don't know. It's like the or like male gazy type of like feminine, like strong female character where it's like, oh, she settles things with swords and axes like a man, you know. But but I'm sure she'll change in it. But like, it feels like they're very much attached to like the people they think are like Ninja Warrior character, like the show Ninja Warrior. But yeah. Like, because like Aria's like Ninja Warrior, but a woman, and Brienne is like a fighter, and yeah. Anyway.
All right. Well, in the interest of time, I was thinking about pushing the Sansa discussion for next time. I think there's. I was thinking like
we
her
can talk about that
storyline.
with Blackwater. We talk about Sansa with Blackwater.
Okay,
yeah.
Sounds good.
And
then I've got and
let's just touch on
perfect.
Robb quickly. Roz doesn't really have a storyline. We'll just mention her at the end. Davos and Davos and Tyrion tie in together, and Tywin and Aria would be. So let's do Robb, and then Aria, Tywin, and then talk about Blackwater.
Let's do it.
So do you like the Robb storyline?
Yes. Yes, I do. I thought the intimate scene with him and the Lady Talisa went a little on.
About that.
I felt like that went a little long.
I know it's okay. So I started getting used to like looking at the outfits that the characters wear, and like in the back of my mind, anytime any of the women have something where it's like it's tied in the front but kind of loosely tied, I'm like, oh, they're about to get naked in this scene. And I was 2 for 2. I was right on episode 8, and I was right on episode 10. I was wrong on episode 9, but I was right on episode 10 with Roz, because she was wearing like that loose hanging. She goes up to Varys, and she's like, "Oh, are you sure?" Well, it takes it off. So in this, I thought I was like, "Oh yeah, it's gonna come off," and it did.
Rob wasn't wearing his boiled leather armor too. He wasn't wearing his boiled leather chainmail armor in that scene either. So it's kind of like, huh? It's a lot easier to take that off than it is to take off the armor. Okay.
You would think. The reason why it was so, I remember, this is why I thought it was funny. Like, they're like talking about things, and he like admits like, I don't want to marry her, and it's like, oh, do you want me instead? And they're like, yes, we must kiss and make out. And so like they start the kissy foreplay stuff, and then all of a sudden the show spends like 30 seconds on her trying to like untie his vest. And I lost my shit. I thought it was the funniest thing. I was like, this is why we have editing, is to not have to watch this happen in real time. Nope. Apparently they didn't have any other storylines they wanted to comment on in this episode, because it took forever to get that vest off.
It really did.
And then hers, it's a loosely tied little thing, so that pops right off.
Right.
And then tasteful nudity.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm glad. I don't know. I just like the. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I guess it's done well. I just have no real. I guess because I feel like I feel like their like relationship happens so fast, like it just like escalates really quickly throughout the season. I don't know.
Yeah, there's.
I don't know.
So he doesn't marry her in the books. He marries a minor lord's daughter named Jane Westerling, and basically, so yeah, Ned died, and Rob's grieving, and Jane helped him get through the pain. So it's a little bit weird watching this, because is Rob grieving for his father like constant? I don't know. I just feel like that's getting a little. There's so much like, going on. Like I've.
Yeah. Well, I also like to that degree, because I did read that this character replaces Jane.
Mm-hmm.
And I do like how I like how he says like I'm in a lot of like I'm conflicted because I'm honor bound to do this thing like my father, but my father's honor got him killed, which it did. His honor got him killed. So the writers got that right. So he has all these conflicting emotions, and like I don't know, I just felt like in the back of my head the way they introduced her and had her looking in the episode she was introduced, I thought she was going to be like some sort of a spy, which isn't the case.
Ooh.
Do you like how the show did it better, where you're not sure what exactly is going on with them, though mainly it looks like it's driven by like passion and love? Or do you like in the
100%.
book where you like the show better on that?
Yes, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I
My
think
assumption
that
is Rob is better in the show than he is in the book. That's my assumption.
His story is better in the show, because a lot of this stuff just happens off page. It just happens off page. You just in Storm of Swords, Rob comes back and Caitlyn's like, "Oh, Rob, I missed you." Like, and the readers missed Rob too, because he was there 25% of the way through, and then we didn't see him at all.
Right.
And now about 15% of the way in Storm of Swords, there he is. And we're like, "Oh, hey, Rob. Oh, you're married. Oh, that's what? When?
That's not good."
Right. It's so like the readers reading that just going like, oh, because you're like the phrase, and then also at the same time, what? You're married? So I felt like that was a very good mother moment in the books.
Okay.
I'm not a mother. I wouldn't know. But if I had a child and all of a sudden I didn't see him for like 6 months and come back married, I'd be like, that was okay.
Well, does he also like lock up his mother in the book? Because that's the other major thing that happens is he locks up his mom because she let Jaime go.
Yes, he locks her up.
Yeah.
But in her room, not in a dungeon or anything.
Right. I mean,
or in
she's
a cell,
under
just
house. Well,
she's confined to quarters. Yeah. There's only one more thing about Robb, and I have to tell you that at the end of Blackwater. So I'm good moving past Robb. If
do we need to talk about Caitlyn?
I'm gonna push that to next time.
Okay, I was gonna say I don't have anything to say about Caitlyn anyway.
Yeah, I'll push because actually the stuff about Caitlyn that I was talking about was about with Jaime's discussion, so pretty much got through that one.
Cool.
It's there's more about family stuff, but that's now that I'm thinking about the show, I'm like I kind of wonder if they're pushing some of this stuff to the next season. So if they do, we'll talk about it then, and if they don't, then I will rail against the machine next time.
Okay. Let's talk about Aria's story then.
It's just Aria and then Blackwater.
Yep, it's Aria, Tywin, and Blackwater.
Yeah, the showrunner's favorite character. Okay, so my wife really loved the scenes with Aria and Tywin, sort of like a father-daughter kind of thing. In episode 7, the only comment I have about that is that it was deftly done by the showrunners or the writers to insert the history of Harrenhal in that scene. I thought that was just the history's not that important, but it was just he was talking to Aria as Aria was cleaning up and just like, these halls, Harrenhal. Do you know that the Great Hall has 35 hearths? I just thought that was just like a perfect way to insert some of that history about Harrenhal. Apparently that's all I have for episode 7.
So I think we talked about this last time, just to mention it again. I was going to say, isn't Sansa supposed to be the clever one? Did they give the cleverness to Arya with the whole like, I invoke your name, and he's like, don't invoke my name. I think she was looking for the dude, but like Arya is clever. Like she cleverly manipulates Tywin. Like, is she also a clever one? I always thought that Sansa was supposed to be the clever one, so I wanted to go to you for clarification on this.
They're clever in their own ways. This is where Arya's clever. Sansa is going to be clever at court.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to clarify because I remember I know that it just feels like Arya just has all of the tools in her shed. She does say that at Jack and Hagar. What's the third name? The third name, Jack and Hagar. It's like, oh man, it's pretty good, but the context is different. Right, we'll get into that because I think that happens in episode 8. Let me just go back to A Man Without Honor to make sure I'm not forgetting anything here at Harrenhal. Oh yeah, I always feel like Tywin acts weak around Arya, and I don't like that. And that's it. That's all I have for that episode.
That is a very interesting character profile. One that
because I think I mentioned it last episode, I feel like he's weak around her.
I think you got a really good point on that, but I can't confirm nor deny that because it develops differently in the books.
Right. That's just it. Like, why? My main issue I have is if you're going to take so many liberties with certain characters, then you can't use that as an excuse for not developing other ones. So again, I don't know what happens to Sansa. In my mind, Sansa becomes this really strong court manipulator who's doing all of these things to get out of trouble. Like we see in episode 10, which is why I'm excited to talk about her in episode 10. But every time she's on screen, she's like, oh, I'm bleeding. Let's hide it. Oh, we can't hide it. Oh, things are being said to me. I'm not doing anything. I'm not actively involved.
Right.
But if you're going to take all of these liberties with Arya's story, for example, all of these liberties with Jon's story to change it, all of these liberties with Daenerys' story to change it, you can then take liberties with Sansa's story to take things that are just mental, like just like in her head she's doing to change things, and create a storyline where she's doing it physically, or change the scenario or the situation to make her more active in what she's doing. But instead, everything just happens to her until a writer decides that they want her to do something, and then the show decides to take and then D.B. Weiss and David Benioff take 8 steps back with her. Is my interpretation of the show. Again, I have huge blinders on this. So I have huge blinders when it comes to her. But anyway.
Yeah, she's... I think that her story is like crazy important. We've talked about it before. It was just such a huge missed opportunity for Sansa.
Okay, so I'm not crazy on this.
No,
anyway, going back to Arya.
But she is not a master court manipulator. At least not yet. But
no. But
she's all in captivity.
But they could be laying more breadcrumbs to show her being more active instead of just be passive, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, show her develop into this character more. Give her the good and the bad. Like with a lot of these characters, we're just getting the good, or we're getting the good and the bad. With Sansa, it seems like we're just getting bad.
Yes, there is one big decision that she makes in this book, in Clash of Kings, that they just like wiped away from the show. Now,
we'll
to
talk
be
about
fair,
that later, but yeah.
Right. It would be. We'll talk about it in the next podcast.
Okay.
I think it would be fitting to talk about in the next podcast.
Okay.
So I'll try to be brief about Aria in the books. So Aria in the books, Tywin's there, but she never interacts with Tywin. He leaves. He rides out. And that is related with Robb in Blackwater. So this other group comes in called the Brave Companions. They're a sellsword quote company. So they're a company of a bunch of sellswords, led by Vargo Hoat the Goat. And they come in and they're like, all right, we're going to be here, whatever. And, we work for Tywin Lannister and all that. And then look what else we brought. We brought, like 200 Northerners. And Arya's like, Northerners? Oh my God. Those are Robb's people. Those are Robb's soldiers. If we can get them free, we can take Harrenhal, because there's not that many people of the Lannisters here. So she goes to Jack and Hagar and says, Jack and Hagar, please, you got to help me free these prisoners. I know that we could take the castle. We could do it. I really need to do it. And Jack and Hagar says, and my Jack and Hagar would be like, a girl can ask these things, but a man says no. Versus like the TV show, a man can blah, 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 blah. I don't know. I just, my own mind versus the show. Like, I have more personality in my head than like, dark, mysterious. But anyway, I digress.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Yeah. There was my impression. So that is when Jack and Hagar wasn't going to do it. So that is when Arya says
the name.
I call your name for my third name to die. And so then it's like, a girl cannot call a man his own name, So what they do is they cook up, and they literally cook up. It deals with hot soup. They cook up this huge thing. They go in and they rescue the Northerners. The Northerners take the castle, but it turns out that they were going to anyways, because Vargo Hoat was apparently working for them. And Roose Bolton comes in and takes control. Yeah, he takes control of Harrenhal. So he's there in Harrenhal, and Arya is there. Now Arya is the cupbearer for the Leech Lord, Roose Bolton. That's how it works out in the books. But then Arya escapes with Gendry, who is a young Christian Bale, and Hot Pie. No Hot Pie! No Hot Pie! And here's where I feel like the show doesn't understand her character. Because Arya is not valuing life. She gets the coin from Jaqen. You don't know he's a faceless man. He moves his hand over his face and his face changes. Gives her the coin. That's all the same. But then Aria escapes and she drops the coin and a soldier looks at it. And this is in like the dead of night. And then Aria kills the soldier and says, "Valor Morghulis," and takes the coin and runs off with Gendry and Hot Pie as they leave Harrenhal and they try to go north to be reunited with Robb and Catelyn in Riverrun. So Aria kills one of her own men on her side, and she just does it. She feels bad, but not really. Like she's totally devaluing life, and I feel like there's going to be a really hard lesson for her coming up. I don't know what, but I just.
Well,
anyways, that's how it plays out in the books.
Because of the books. Because of the books. But wait, isn't she like doesn't she say Valor Morghulis for him to reappear?
No, that's only in Bravos. If she goes to Bravos or finds anybody from Bravos, she shows the coin and says Valor Morghulis, and that's.
But if she kills someone and says it, like what's the point of her killing someone and saying it?
She just felt like saying it. Okay. It actually has a meaning. It means all men must die.
Got it. Okay.
That's what it means. So she doesn't know what it means. She just did it. So that's how it plays out in the books. Yeah.
So he doesn't just like kill, because I was like, man, this guy is one. I was like, this guy is awesome. And
yes,
two,
he is.
But like, okay, so let's talk about Jaqen H'ghar for a second. He's awesome. He kills all of those people. He has poison darts, I guess, hidden in his ass that he like shoots at people somehow.
And in the books, he kind of controls animals.
Kind of controls animals, I guess. But like, let's focus on like he kills everyone. How did he get captured in the first place?
He's in the books reveal that, or the show reveals that he's a faceless man who are assassins. They hide in shadows and they kill people. So I can imagine that he did kill those good folk on the guard, guarding the castle in the middle of the night. They're on watch. He just takes them out one by one. So that is sort of believable.
And
but
again,
how did
using
he
visuals.
Get captured in the first place? Right. Yeah. How did he get captured in the first place, though? If he's surrounded by a bunch of armed soldiers, then yeah. I don't know. I don't know where I'm at in the books. I don't know how he got captured. I don't even know if they reveal it in the story. But I've been wondering that myself. How did he get captured? I have a theory. My theory is that Varys and how Robert wanted to kill Daenerys, and they were like, "Oh, hire the faceless men. They're the best assassins in the world." Well, Jaqen H'ghar is apparently a faceless man, and he came into King's Landing as a representative for the faceless man. So they were gonna, I don't know, and then he got ambushed. I don't know. It's just a weird theory.
I just was like, I just thought it was strange. Like, I mean, I get it makes sense, but like, it makes sense in sort of like the gritty world of like he was captured, or like why he never tried to escape imprisonment. Although
a man can fight.
He would be really used on the wall. Like, it is kind of a shame. He'd be pretty useful on the wall. Whatever. Yeah, it's fine.
But I don't know. I don't know if killing men would do good against killing those who are undead. The Red God. They have lives to kill, and these people are just beyond that.
Well, apparently he's a video game character because he can just kill everyone and produce poison darts out of nothing. So. Yeah, that's the only note I had was how did he get captured? I thought it was a great way to go about it, but cool. That was Arya's story and Tywin's.
That was
because the only thing I had to say about Tywin in that moment was like he just seems a lot weaker whenever Arya's around. Like they're either trying to humanize him or like show he has a weakness. like you said, they might develop him differently in the show. Where you're at in the book, maybe it's different. Maybe it's like, oh, Arya's the daughter he never had. But it's like, I guess it's kind of comforting to think like, oh, this servant girl he has is like, he cares for her because he needs an outlet to care for something. But it also feels like it comes out of left field for a guy who's as like cold and calculated as I would imagine Tywin would be, given the fact that like it seems like he hates his children.
You
or at least
actually nailed it on the head. You nailed it on the head. It's good for television, but you 100% nailed it on the head. Like you nailed it on the head. That's very right and very in character from what you just said.
Wait, like so he is in character? Like he doesn't like his kids, but he like wants to be the surrogate father to the serving girl?
Well, what you said about that seemed like seemed out of character. That is correct. He would not want to be he would not want to be a surrogate father. Like that's a liberty that the show took, which for television is probably not a bad liberty to take. But if you're looking at the characters as detailed as you and I are, where we want characters to act the way characters would act, then yeah.
Well, considering like there are characters in the show later, and there's characters even in the book who are just like the embodiment of pure evil. It seems weird to like try and, especially like the show really leans hard into like the almost Disney level of evil villain. It seems weird to try and even like promote or humanize a character who would be sinister in the show. Like, I don't know. It feels weird. It's like, it's almost as if like they took a scene of Joffrey like petting a dog, and then they like juxtapose it with him like mutilating a hooker. Like it's like, okay, why are we like, do we really need to like make, I don't know, the Tywin issue, whatever. Maybe the actor itself was like, I want to be more like Dumbledore. I don't know. Should we talk
Shall
about
we?
Blackwater?
Let's
get into it. So the whole Tyrion, everything with Tyrion. So I will say the only other thing I wanted to mention was like the scene between Stannis and the Onion Knight, where he's like, where they give the backstory. So like you gave the backstory to us a couple episodes ago, or maybe even last episode of Davos. They did find a way to work the Onion Knight story and why he's called the Onion Knight into the show. And they used it as a way to then say, like, you are going to be my Hand of the King.
Yes. Me too. I know that you are a film guy. I know nobody else knows you're a film guy, but certainly not the listeners of Under the Wheels knows you're a film guy. What did you think about that opening shot with the camera panning across the boat? It's almost like a tracking shot in the mist in the water. That shot right there was very different than I felt like any shot in any episode so far. I just felt like, whoa.
So
I haven't seen that shot before.
Yeah, let's just talk about the episode of Blackwater then. We don't have to worry about the lead-in with the characters. So to give context to the episode Blackwater, I did not know who wrote it until, boom, written by George R.R. Martin. I thought, I'm really excited about this episode because I was nervous it was going to be written by D.B. Weiss and David Benioff. Directed by Neil Marshall. He directed The Descent and Doomsday and a movie called Centurion. He directed the new Hellboy movie that a lot of people didn't like, but he is known for sort of like high levels of violence. And he's staged these big set pieces. One of the reasons they were comfortable going with them is that he's staged big set pieces with a limited budget and with a lower budget. So, and my friend told me like, oh yeah, they always get Neil Marshall to do all of the big war episodes, the big battle episodes for prep and everything. So between George R.R. Martin, who's written a lot for television, and Neil Marshall, who's directed a lot, I figured we were in for a pretty good episode. So the opening, this is a weird film thing. I like the way it opened. I thought that the way it opened was brilliant because you want to set the mood for what's going to happen and then escalate tension as it goes. So it starts off slow and escalates tension. You had the cliche of like all like it's like I'm going to call it the Saving Private Ryan cliche.
Oh,
I think
so
you know what
cliche.
I'm talking about. They have all
Yes.
the boats, and then they show the men, and then and then you have to have at least one dude vomit, and they have this barrel full of puke that's just sloshing back and forth. And I was just thinking to myself, like, God damn, how much do these people eat? Because like the guy and like
Your stomach can't hold that much.
Again, like the funny thing about like puke in movies and stuff is like it's one of two ways. They either have to like set up a pneumatic device that spews it out. Well, three ways. You either have someone vomit on camera, which I've seen. Didn't know it at the time. You have like a pneumatic device like in some movies where it shoots out, or you just get like a handful of stuff, you put it in their mouth so that they have a whole mouthful of something, and then they pretend to cough it out. And it looks really fake. It always looks really fake, and it always looks like it's not enough. And so you have this like giant barrel full, and I was like, this is okay. This is
They
a
throw it
movie
over
thing.
the side. They throw it over the side. It's a boat.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, not if you're down below deck, but like just like the amount of it, I thought was funny. But yeah, it was a very, very well done. I actually, in the episode, I found it interesting because they set it up as, I don't want either side to win. I hate both of these kings, but there's a bunch of characters I care for. I don't know why I care for Davos, but I do care for Davos. I feel like the show might not have established his character as much as I would have liked, but I was still rooting for him.
I agree. You know, I agree, because his chapters were very spaced out, like in the books. They're very spaced out. But you root for Davos because he's very honorable. Like, he's so honorable, and he loves his king. And even though his king punished him by chopping off the last, his fingers at the last knuckle or whatever, even because of all that, even with all that happening, he still loves his king. And he thought he was a very fair king, and Davos is a very fair, honorable smuggler. He's a very honorable smuggler, and that's why, in my opinion, you root for him. Is because he's just such a, he's a father of 5, I think, and just seems like such a well-reasoned guy, and he really likes his king. So I think that's why you root for him.
I also liked the scene between, they talk about it in the inside the episode. They have this scene between the Hound and Bran. I thought that was a good scene. Props to the woman who was nude for like most of the scene and had to sit on Bran's super dirty lap. But like they talk about it on the inside the episode where it's like Bran and the Hound are the same person, just fighting for different sides. And actually, a lot of the things I was thinking about the Hound came to fruition on this episode, which I liked as well.
Yes. True to character, I think. A lot of what you talk about is about character consistency. And knowing the history of the character, how they set it up in previous episodes. Because did they talk about the Hound being afraid of fire? You have to go back to season 1 to really remember about that.
That's why. We'll talk about that as actually I guess we can talk about it, because I was wondering why the Hound just changed so fast. It was just like, what just happened in the middle of the battle? Like I have one critique of the episode that I'll leave to the end. But yeah, that okay. I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. Speaking on Davos quickly, I forgot to mention this. I love how Davos was the voice of reason. So like every time his son would say something, Davos would temper it. And I really liked that because it told me, it showed, like, we know a lot about character. It showed me his quality. He's like, oh, but as soon as we'll take it, you'll be the hand. He's like, oh, but we have to take it first. And even if I'm the hand, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, that's great. Okay, I love this. I like it. I will also...
And then his ship gets blown up.
Well, before that, I love how this, like, you can tell that... So this is what I mean about, like, the other writers will step it forward. I love how Sansa challenged... I loved Sansa in this episode. She was great. Like, you finally have your, like, your payoffs, but also growing challenges. So she challenges Joffrey because Joffrey's like, I'm gonna have the blood, like, kiss my sword, and she kisses it, like, and then you're gonna kiss it again when I have the blood of my uncle on it. And she's like, oh, so you're gonna be on the front lines? You know, I'm a Kingsguard and blah blah blah. I was like, oh, so you'll have this? Oh, so then blah blah blah. And I was like, oh my god.
That was like the greatest hep moment ever. It was like the
That's
greatest
good writing.
Hep moment. Yeah, it was so good.
And then later in the episode when Cersei is talking to her and she's like, even me? You want me to be rescued? And she's like, yeah, even you. And Joffrey? And she's like, I love my king. And it's like, okay, that's good. But then, like, Cersei's like, prayer is so stupid. There's no reason to pray. But when things look the bleakest and you need to look to a leader to sort of, like, figure out what's going on and, like, how to deal with it, Cersei is getting drunk. And Sansa is leading everyone in prayer to calm them down and bring them back. And
yes,
that is something I don't think that D.B. Weiss and David Benioff would have thought to put in on their own. But it's a great character moment for Sansa to show off, like, this is... So I loved that. So, like, that's why, like... And then Sansa, when she's talking with the Hound, and he's like, you know, like, come with me. And I was like, just go with him. He's going to bring you back to the north. Everything should be fine. And she's like, nope, this is my home now. I have a duty and an honor to protect people by marrying this terrible king and blah, 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 blah. I thought that was that stark honor.
Okay, that's where they didn't go into Sansa's story in the books, because in the books, Sir Dantos, she's the one that she rescued earlier at the very beginning of the season.
Yeah,
she is meeting with him. I don't know if I told you this before, but she is meeting with him constantly in the Weirwoods, because nobody goes to the Weirwoods in King's Landing. Nobody does. They don't believe in the old gods. It's all about the seven. So nobody goes there. That's the only place that she goes. Sir Dantos is there, who's now Dantos the Fool. And he says, hey, I'm going to get you out of here. I'm going to get you out of here. And so Sansa keeps meeting with him, like, all right, are we going to go yet? And he's just like, no, not yet. No, the time's not right. Not yet. No, but we'll get out of here. Just, we got to wait for the right moment. There's somebody I know. He's going to help us get us out. We're going to do it. And they missed it. They could have had that in there. I wasn't going to talk about this today because I was like, oh, we'll talk about it next time. But it's just, I can't help it. Because when you said that the Hound was going to take her out, she's also thinking about Dantos at the same time taking her out. And who do you trust? And that's where I think the show missed it, because when I was reading it, I was like, oh my God, don't trust this guy. He wants to get you out, but it could be it could be a plot. It could be a ploy. It could be Cersei putting somebody in there to get to her. Like, it just, I was so scared. I was so scared reading it. Like, any moment now, Cersei and the Kingsguard are going to come out, and they're just going to be like, yeah, see, look, you're trying to get out of here. You're a traitor. You're treason. You know what Joffrey does to traitors. So I was on the edge of my seat the whole time reading Sansa chapters. And D.B. Weiss and David Benioff did not put that storyline in it. You're going to have to later. But they should have done it then, because she was going to marry Joffrey, and he was having her beat constantly by the Kingsguard. Not once or twice, just constantly. Just a couple times a week. Yeah. And there's a way out, and he's like, wait a little bit longer, and she's getting desperate. I mean, it's just so much tension and drama, and
I can see why they cut a lot of that stuff out, though, because I don't want to see Sansa constantly beaten.
Ooh, good point. Anyways,
no, but I mean, like, it adds to the desperate, but it also makes it feel like, well, why don't you just go with the Hound, who has protected you this entire show? Like, I don't know, that's frustrating. And I don't know if it's as obvious in the book that he's been constantly protecting her, or if I just notice it because I've read it in the first book that he, like, took a bit of, like, a shine to her as, like, someone he can kind of protect in some ways.
He does go to Sansa drunk.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, you show him. Yeah.
you're not sure what he's going to do to her. You don't know.
In the book? During Blackwater?
Yeah. He puts a blade to her neck and asks her, and you're just like, oh my god, like, what's going to happen to poor Sansa? And then he's just like, sing for me, little bird, sing for me. And so she sings for him. And then he cries and he leaves.
So he doesn't even ask to take her away?
He might. I don't remember that detail.
Okay.
He might.
Okay, that's fine.
But yeah, that was a good moment. The only thing I think would have been really cool is if she looked out her window and she saw the green flame from the wildfire and just sort of like bathing the room in green. I thought that would have been kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was the thing. Like, I'm sure it happened like this in the book as well. So they all go to the battlements and Joffrey's there and ready to fight and Tyrion's there and Joffrey's like, oh my god. He's like the impatient guy who's just like, are we there yet? He's like, where's the fleet? Where's our fleet? And Tyrion's just like, ugh. But leading up to that, Tyrion has one last night. What he, not an actual last night, but like, like one last night with his woman and
Shay.
with Shay, yeah, and then they go out onto the battlements and they dress him in his armor and stuff, and he and Bronn have a conversation. I think is that where they had the conversation earlier about like, why don't you wear the golden armor? And he's like, slow me down. He's like, okay, fair enough. I don't remember if Varys meets with Tyrion at that time, but they have the one ship come out, and then Roy Dotrice walks over. He's the guy who creates all of the green fire. He's like, oh, it's all ready, sir. And you're like, ooh, I know what's gonna happen. And so I like that moment.
No, wisdom Helene.
Yes. I like that moment because I like how Davos and Tyrion are having a chess match. Like they're constantly cutting back and forth between the two, and you're thinking, who's making the right moves, who's making the wrong moves. And I thought that's how the whole episode was going to be. And it wasn't. After the ship explodes, everything kind of devolves into chaos.
It's kind of, yeah.
But that's where you get Bronn, Prince of Thieves, Robin Bronn, Prince of Thieves, I should say, who shoots the flaming arrow once it gets close enough. Tyrion drops the torch and it signals Bronn to fire on the boat. The boat explodes. And I remember that moment because I was like, I know people can die at any time. I have this feeling that Davos' son is going to die in this battle. Because of other reasons. Well, anyway, the boat goes off, it explodes, and it looks like it kills both Davos and his son. And I was sad because I was like, but Davos.
Yeah.
Davos.
And one flaw is that they didn't show Stannis leave that boat.
They didn't.
But he had to have, because that boat just got destroyed, and you see Stannis on the land later.
So, but it's like an armada. So my assumption is Stannis was on a different boat. So Stannis was on a different boat, and then they're like, okay, let's go attack on land. And I was like, okay, let's attack on land. I mean, like, I know this is bad, but then like, the only other thing I remember is like Joffrey being called back is like where my mind jumps to. So is there anything in the actual, like when Stannis lands and starts fighting that you want to talk about?
No, there's a bunch of fighting. The only other thing that I can think of before we get to the grand, which I'm pretty sure you're going to talk about next, is that really quick in the books, Tyrion does not lead, or I'm sorry, Davos does not lead the ships. In the show, Davos, you're leading my navy, right? In the books, some other guy is leading.
You're leading my navy.
Well, the hand thing is true. But the Navy is not. He does not lead the Navy because Davos said, wow, I'm not leading the Navy. This idiot is. And he's just putting all of our ships there. Like, what an idiot. And Davos is thinking, if it were me, I would be there ahead of time. I know King's Landing like the back of my hand. And even with the knuckles cut off, I would be there. I would act like a smuggler. I would see what's going on first. I would try to pick up anything, see if something's different. I've been doing this my whole life, all 30, 40, 50 years of my life. I'm the best smuggler in the world. I know King's Landing. If I saw something different, I would be able to plan and prepare for it. But instead, Davos was not in charge. This other boneheaded idiot was. And yeah, it was not good. So a little bit like somebody could read into this saying like, I don't think that's what Davos would do. I think Davos is a smuggler. So wouldn't he like try to like spy on it first and then
my only counterpoint to that is like, this was literally written by George R.R. Martin.
Well, yeah, I know. he had to work with what he had to work with. Let's just put it that way. In the books, yeah, different. And my only thing was Shay is a fighter. She was quite the fighter in the episode. She brought Sansa to her quarters, I think.
Right. She brought Sansa to her quarters, and she's like, I'm not gonna go unless like I'm not gonna get savagely brutalized by anyone.
Right.
Any of these parties.
Right. Yeah. She was a fighter. That's all I got and for that part. Because I think I know what's coming next.
Well, before I do that, I will say like one thing I like about the way that it's set up is that there's war strategy in it. Also macro and micro, I wrote. People abandoning already. So early on in the fight, there's a bunch of soldiers after they land. Yeah, this is why I have to like take notes. They have soldiers who land and they are already abandoning the battle. Like they talk about, what was it? Someone was like, oh, that's right. Bronn was rounding up all of the non-thieves or all of the thieves. He had put like a bunch of them in prison because he knew that like when war comes, the only people that make a profit off of it are like the thieves or whatever. So he was preemptively putting a bunch of people in prison to prevent it.
Yeah.
So I liked that. It's funny how like a lot of the stuff that Tyrion does is like actually really good, but it all like for the city and stuff. But then like it all, as we eventually see, it all gets undermined when he's just like removed from his post, in a very like unjust way. But again, like people who think that the show is all about misery, like what happens to Tyrion on this battle, I feel like is realistic and not like depressing. I feel like it's like I found it very satisfying. His ending in episode 10, like where he stops in episode 10. The other thing, let me talk a little bit about diegetic and non-diegetic sound. I know one of the things you wanted me to do was talk a little bit more about like film theory. So one thing that they do that's interesting is they have Davos's boats drum, which is a normal thing to make sure that everyone stays in rhythm and is consistent. They can also use sound to like help like coordinate attacks and stuff. So they start drumming, and that's diegetic because the people in the world can hear it. However, they use that drumming in the actual score by Ramin Djawadi, so that then there's a mix between the diegetic, which is in the world, and the non-diegetic, which is used to influence what we're seeing. So I did put a note in there, just a brief discussion about diegetic and non-diegetic. It's one of those like really filmy things that happens. That's a lot of fun. Like, it's just fun to play with that stuff sometimes. I'm trying to think of an example where you see it, but the other thing I was going to say is like the green fire scene. I wrote down like it's amazing. I liked it because it built up in a way that was, one other thing I have to talk about. Remind me to talk about the poison. So the green So the green fire scene, the way that it built and escalated and then released was like proper filmmaking 101. It was done really well. It was done so well that I just wrote a note there and can't really describe it, but a lot of it has to do with like the pacing of how everything happened, how it was constructed, and how it was layered in, and then shot to shot as well. The thing I was going to say about the poison is this is where you get the difference between George R.R. Martin as a writer and D.B. Weiss and David Benioff, because they talk about that poison thing and they're like, ah, yes, 1 drop will make you feel woozy, 3 drops will put you to sleep, then 10 drops. And it's like, it's said in a way where you know exactly what he's saying, what he's doing, but he's saying it in a way that's not explicitly stating it. So it's like a very poetic way of describing it. And I feel like in the hands of other writers, they probably would have said, it's the strongest poison. If you do, just take this.
10 drops could kill a man.
Yeah, or not even that. Just like this, like not even describing how much you take. It's just like, this vial of poison. If they should storm the castle, take it and take it so that you won't be captured alive. Like it does the job, but it doesn't have that deeper level of context. So by describing it, the artistic, but also describing the world, like by describing this poison in those terms, it's like, oh, I get a better idea of what the poison is. So that's what I meant when I said like D.B. Weiss and David Benioff writing, George R.R. Martin writing. That's what came to mind as just like how the characters talk, or like how Cersei gets drunker and drunker and becomes more and more vile and wretched and reveals more and more about herself. Yes. I don't know if they would have even broached that subject. So
that's source material, and it's.
I know, but I don't.
It was just great. I thought it was great. I appreciated that so much.
I did too. But you have to understand how to build up these scenes to do it. Like, it's gonna sound like I'm really harping and harsh on them, but the repetition.
Well, they don't have to write every episode, right? They don't have to write every episode.
They don't. But right? But what I'm saying is like, if you're going through the format where you're advancing everyone's storyline 5 minutes, like if you're taking 5 minutes to advance everyone's storyline, you can't do this thing that this episode in particular does, where it limits its scope of characters, visits one area, comes back, visits an area, comes back, visits an area, comes back. And every time it comes back, it advances something, or in most cases, multiple things, reveals character attributes. We stay with some characters longer. That's why when Tyrion finally decides to lead his charge, you have strong emotional connection to it because it builds properly.
I was punching the air just now because that scene was so awesome. And, just when Peter Dinklage was like, I have to lead. I have to lead. Just sort of that realization that I have to, like, it's got to be me. I've got to do it. I'm losing. Everybody's just, morale is low. I'm losing everybody. I gotta do it. I gotta take the reins. It's just, like you said, that would have been so much weaker. That would have been so much weaker if, we had Daenerys and this and this and this. And then, okay, let's do this, Just like in the episode with the riot. I thought the transition from the riot to that next scene was just so fast that you didn't have a chance to really feel that emotional weight. But in an episode like this, where you can just limit your focus, limit your scope, and you can really let it play out.
Yeah. Well, I
think that's a very key point.
Like it's and they approach it in the inside the episode. Well, the other thing is like, it's true, he's not a fighter. They didn't set him up to be a fighter. And so that point is more like, it's even more impactful and like the odds are even more against him. But like, that's why you get a good writer and you get a film director to escalate the scale like they want to. And yeah, the speech was great. And it's like, you have these great actors. Let them do it. Like even Theon's speech was great. Like let the actors act. In episode 10, I was kind of like, oh my God, are we going to have back-to-back big speeches and then thing? And like, no, that didn't happen. But all of Tyrion's strategy stuff I thought was really cool. So then, yeah, Joffrey flees because he's a coward, and and like his mom said, you have to retreat. And yeah, like morale is down, but you do get the feeling that listening to Tyrion talk, it's like maybe we can do this. And
there are
then
brave men out there.
Let's go and kill them. They set it up
So
too earlier in the
good.
episode when Varys gives him the map that shows the ways to escape and all that, and I liked that. So they get out there and they actually do. It reminded me of, there's a lot of Lord of the Rings parallels in this, but they rally around Tyrion and they start killing all of the guys, and then Tyrion looks to his right and F, because he's like a whole nother battalion of Stannis's men. And again, like, Stannis is in the battlements taking people down, and they're like pounding with the battering ram in sort of like the weirdest battering ram that I've seen. But that goes to the one problem I have with the episode. But yeah, it is cool to see Stannis as like this ruthless soldier, just like destroying everyone who comes up to him. I was like, okay. I can understand why he thinks he's like, deserves to be king here.
Oh gosh, imagine Robert
Like,
in his heyday.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, like I think that scene right there kind of makes you think about Robert Baratheon. Like, he was a fighter and a warrior, and Stannis is too. I mean, he's taking out people left and right, and then it's cool that they were able to do this episode. Like, they got this. You could tell that they're trying to storm the castle, right? Or storm the Red Keep. And the ships are coming, then they land, and then they're getting beat down, so then they get something else, and they get the shields with the boat over their head so that they can defend against the fire arrows.
Yeah,
and
that's
just
right.
arrows
That was cool.
And
the stones.
And then having to defend. And the stones. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The stone. I mean, it was just like... You could see, like you said, strategy and tactic. Oh, we don't call it strategy. We call it tactics. But go on.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, real quick.
Yeah.
In the previous episode, they showed Tyrion and Varys chatting. And they had the Red Keep in the background, and they showed Blackwater Bay. And I thought that was such a brilliant set. It just looked so good. You can see the keep in the background. It's like, oh, man. If there's anything that makes you feel like this is like a real world, it was a scene like that really, yeah. Just want to shout out that scene. But yeah, dude, Blackwater was really good. It was amazing that they were able to do that. And then the part that I've been dying to say all night has been where Tyrion looks around and then he sees Sir Mandon. And he looks so fearsome in his Kingsguard cloak, and he's standing there, arms wide, with that evil face, just like Sir Meryn Trant did in Season 1 when he's about to fight Syrio Forel. They had like the exact same stance and the same armor, just, I'm gonna fight you now, Tyrion. So I thought that was kind of cheesy.
Yeah, I didn't understand any of that part when that was happening. I was like, what? And then I knew that I was like, wait, but he's supposed to be on Tyrion's side. What's going on? I did cheer when Tyrion's squire killed him. I was like,
yeah, Podrick Payne.
Podrick Payne. I was like, that's awesome. I
was thinking this should be called the Podrick Payne cast, but I love Sir Waymar Royce too much.
I don't know. Podrick Payne was pretty awesome. Podrick Payne was pretty perfect. But yeah, I loved that moment. I did like. Okay, I'm gonna get into. Do you have anything else that you really liked that you wanted to say?
Well, did you stand up and cheer when that happened?
when Podrick Payne, I didn't stand up, but I did love it. I might have stood up. I don't know. I loved it. I
just imagine you watch it going, yeah! When that happened.
There was a lot of that going on. Yeah, I thought that was awesome.
The other good part was the Cersei and Tommen scene.
Yes.
At the end. And I thought that was just so good. Cersei's drunk, but she knows what she has to do. Of course, in the books, it plays out a little bit differently. Tyrion, I think he does get Tommen out of the city.
Because Tyrion loves
Tyrion.
Tommen.
It's Tyrion's book, I'm telling you. I mean, he does all those like amazing things. He sets curfews because of the riots and things like that, and people don't like him, and he's saving the city, and just I liked it when Cersei talked about that. Have you ever been in a sack of a city? And it really just kind of brought it back, because I remember learning in history class, like, they sacked the city. I was like, they took it over. Oh, that's great. And then, of course, you're like, yeah, they came in and they raped the women and they stole everything and put them to the sword. They just killed everybody and just destroyed, burned. It's like, oof. I'm glad I don't live in Westeros. I don't know anybody who wants to.
So was there anything in that was like dramatically different in the book that we haven't touched on? Because like Davos not leading the charge, Stannis gets on there and he starts killing people. Tyrion smuggles Tommen out. Anything?
I think he smuggles Tommen out. The battle's very different. I'll try to keep it quick.
No, it's fine.
I can get into this.
Okay.
Well,
then maybe it's okay. Go ahead. Because I know what my point. Okay. I know what my point is. Go ahead.
Okay. So in the previous episode, I believe it's episode 8.
8.
I think that's where Sansa flowers.
Episode 7 is.
7 is when she flowers. Yeah, Stannis' men is already attacking the city. Because Stannis isn't just a navy. He also has men, too, on the ground. Right? He has foot and he has horse. We saw that at Renly's camp. And some of Renly's people went over to Stannis' side. So Stannis is south of... So those soldiers are south of King's Landing. They marched north to King's Landing. So they're attacking the King's Gate, which is the southern gate of King's Landing. And that is going on when Sansa flowers, which is, 2 episodes ago. So that's going on. And then Stannis' naval army hits that mud gate. And so Tyrion sets up a diversion with the ships of Joffrey's ships are in the water, sets it up as a decoy. Stannis comes in through this small little river. It's Blackwater Bay, but it's kind of like a little river between 2 rocks. Okay. So they come in there. And that's when he lets the trap loose. And you've got columns of wildfire, 50 feet tall, 100 feet tall. And it bathes the city in this green light. And it's just, when I read it, I just was like, oh my gosh, is this like really happening? So yeah, all those ships get torched. And they're trying to leave, but earlier in the book, and throughout the book, right, it's Tyrion's story, he goes to all the smiths and he tells them to make this giant chain. And it's right there that they raise this giant chain net, and the ships can't get out. So they're all stuck. So Tyrion is burning like the whole army, and they can't get out. Well, the wildfire eventually runs out, but the King's Gate's starting to fall. They need more soldiers. The Hound comes back, and the Hound says, I'm not going back out there. Tyrion's like, all right, fine. I'm going to do it. Right? Character decision in the moment. So he takes everybody and they go south to King's Gate. And they fend that off. Then they ride back to Mudgate. And this is where Tyrion channels his brother Jaime. Tyrion loves Jaime. He looks up to Jaime so much. And he gets in the battle. And then he gets the bloodlust. He's like, whoa. Like, I see why Jaime likes us so much. Like, I'm just like, I feel it. Like, I just do no wrong. And all the ships are in the bay. You don't know who's going where, but Tyrion is like, the ships make this huge bridge, and soldiers are fighting all over these ships that are like bouncing and falling down, and it was insane. And Tyrion's falling on one of them, and he reaches out, and Sir Mandan's there to pick him up. But Sir Mandan, I remember this because I had to read it a couple times because I didn't quite get it. Sir Mandan reaches down, but he reaches down with his left hand, not the sword hand. And that's when the sword comes down and cuts Tyrion across the face. Tyrion loses half of his nose. Right. And then Podrick Payne saves him by killing Sir Mandan. And then that's how that whole battle goes. You can't really do that on the television show. You can't have him go from one set piece location to a different set piece location and then back to the battle of the ships. The battle does conclude. You wouldn't think.
You wouldn't think, but go ahead.
The battle does conclude because Tywin comes in with his reinforcements to help out against Mudgate. And then you see the ghost of Renly. Renly's armor. Somebody is in King Renly's armor, and they're fighting people from the south. So the soldiers that Stannis had at the south of King's Landing are now getting flanked from the south by the ghost of Renly. And the whole army over there. And then Tywin comes in with his group on the other side. So I've got one more point after that. Robb wins the war. So I can hold mine. But that's how it goes in the books.
Okay. So my critique, because like overall I really like Blackwater. They are starting to get their groove. And granted, the guy who ended up shooting it had 2 weeks to prep. Neil Marshall, he had 2 weeks to prep. And he did a fantastic and outstanding job. However,
yes.
This feels like this whole episode feels like budget Helm's Deep. That's my main critique. Now, Neil Marshall's gone on record and he said, I did not watch the Battle of Helm's Deep because I did not want to pull anything from it. However, the other thing this feels like is the Siege of Jerusalem in Kingdom of Heaven. So and again, Kingdom of Heaven is one of my favorite movies. They take a lot of the same elements and strategy from Kingdom of Heaven for this movie, including like some of the editing patterns and stuff. So I don't know, like the fact that it was like budget Helm's Deep, like as soon as I thought that, like I couldn't get it out of my mind. And then when Tywin comes in and turns the tide, I was just like,
we have won,
dude. It's like, come on, man. I did like that. Like he comes in and is like, we have victory, and it ended there. I was like, yeah, I appreciate that. But again, like it felt like Helm's Deep. It was like a month of night shoots, which is a lot.
Oof,
they did a lot of great work.
It's a lot.
This is what I mean by like the show might be violent, but sometimes cartoony. So there's that one scene where the guy gets half of his head cut off, from like his eye to his nose, like, but it looks like a Warner Brothers cartoon. So like, and again, it made me think of Ridley Scott and the way he shoots action. Like Neil Marshall is fantastic, but his action does kind of come off a little bit more Quentin Tarantino and not Ridley Scott. And I think Ridley Scott's probably the master of like really gritty, gruesome deaths. I mean, you've seen The Last Duel. So like there are battle scenes, like apparently someone else was supposed to direct. And Gladiator. Apparently someone else was supposed to direct this, but they said that he backed out at the last minute, and they had to find someone to replace him. And like in the back of my mind, I'm like, my God, if Ridley Scott had been chosen to direct any episode of this show, like it would have set an entirely new template for how the show would be crafted. My other thing that I'm gonna say is like I don't know why the showrunners were talking about this episode, and they were like, yeah, and Sansa, like, I think Cersei's just kind of running out of patience because like Sansa's just like this naive little girl, and like it bugs me that they think Sansa is still as naive as I feel like they think that she is. When like she's like outsmarting Joffrey, she's trying to learn how to outsmart Cersei. Like, I don't know. That bugged me a lot to the point where I put it in like really big capital letters. I said they think Sansa is still naive, and I'm like, I thought most of the first season and half of the second season was all about showing how she's starting to get clever and starting to outthink and work in the court. But of course, the creators of the show don't care about any women who want to be courtly women. They think that that's beneath their time for writing these characters. Okay, go ahead. Tell me how.
At the end of Storm of Swords, Sansa's gonna need to, like, where she ends up at the end of Storm of Swords, because that's where I'm at in the books. She will need to draw on all of that to survive. So, yeah, it's pretty epic.
Okay, I was gonna ask you, where is Sansa at the end of Storm of Swords, but we'll get to that, I'm sure. Like, I feel like the books are gonna start strongly diverting from the show, starting with season 3. Although I hear it starts with season 5 is where they run out of material. But so go ahead. How does Robb win the war? Like you said, Robb wins the Clash of Kings.
Robb wins the Clash of Kings, or he
not
would've.
the one on the wall.
So I'm gonna hold a little bit off until our next podcast.
Oh, okay.
But let's just say that Robb's family, his uncle, Uncle Edmure, he's not the, I don't know. No, that's Benjen Stark. Edmure's on his mother's side. Caitlyn's brother. Yeah, and I'll get into the family stuff next time. So Robb... So Tywin leaves Harrenhal because in the books he's gonna go west to deal with Robb. He's west and north to deal with Robb because that's where Robb is. And Robb was gonna lead Tywin on a merry chase because everybody knew Stannis was attacking King's Landing. So Robb was gonna try to draw Tywin in further and further away from King's Landing. And Caitlyn's brother messes it up. And so Tywin's like, oh man, we're not getting anywhere with this. And in fact, we're getting pushed back. So you know what? We're going to get out of here and we're going to go back to King's Landing. And they get to King's Landing just in time to save it. And if Robb had his plan work the way it was supposed to, Tywin would have been there. Robb would have come around on the other side and cut him off from King's Landing. Stannis would attack King's Landing. King's Landing would have fallen. Robb would have swooped in at the end and taken King's Landing from Stannis. So... Robb wins the war.
How would he have taken King's Landing, though? Would Robb have had enough soldiers? Is that, like, the idea is, like, he'd have enough? Because, like, isn't King's Landing super heavily fortified?
Not after Stannis destroys it. Stannis doesn't have as many people. But they don't know he has the Red Woman.
Okay.
Like, nobody knows that. They just know, like, it's
right.
kind of weird. And they know something is really up. Because Stannis took Storm's End, which... not in the show. And... One thing about Storm's End is this giant castle. It's super impregnable. So Stannis takes Storm's End because he lets Davos and Melisandre sneak into Storm's End, and then that's when she births the shadow creature. So Davos sees it happening there. This is after Renly's dead. So Stannis and Melisandre cook up 2 shadow creatures. And the reason why Stannis had to... this is interesting. The reason why Stannis had to smuggle Melisandre under Storm's End is because Storm's End is guarded by some kind of weird magic protection spells the shadow creature could not go through the walls of Storm's End because of these magic barriers that are in that castle. They had to go under the castle and actually into it. Okay. And that's kind of important because in the future, what's going on with the wall? So, throwing that out there, that there's some kind of weird old magic stuff happening. Not too related, but you know, they learned that Stannis takes Storm's End, which is impossible. How did he do it? Nobody knows how. So, you know, but what would have happened was, Robb would have taken out Tywin, separated him from King's Landing, and then he would have swept in and gotten it. So Robb would have won the war, except for Catelyn's brother. Or maybe not won the war, but have a good chance to win the war.
Chance of winning the war. So just a couple of things about episode 10. Loras has joined with Tywin and Marjorie, and now Marjorie is going to marry Joffrey, and everybody's okay with this. I just like it, I just looked at their ages online, and I was like, it's a big age discrepancy. It's like 10 years. It's fine.
In the books, it's like 3. He's 13. She's 16.
They have more Peeta Baelish, which again, it's like everyone is reaping the spoils that Tyrion put in place. Like, the savior of the city is Tywin. And it's just like, it's really depressing, but like also oddly like fitting. I don't know. I was just like, this feels appropriate. Loras is back. And then like Peeta Baelish is like, oh, thank you for giving me Harrenhal. I'll have to find someone to propagate and have grandchildren with. And then like he has this scene where you think like, okay, Sansa is like playing like that she's hurt and she's crushed and like she's defeated, and then as she's walking away, she's like happy. And
that was nice.
Hopefully the beatings will stop.
It's actually better than that in the books. There's a horrible disaster. Joffrey's holding court, and I got to get this through because I don't know why it's not in this episode. Because yes, the ending of the episode was good, but this would have been a sweet moment. So the Iron Throne. Right? It's the Iron Throne filled with tons of barbs because they don't want the king to be comfortable. Well, Joffrey's...
Which they never talk about.
You're right!
They've never mentioned that in the show. That was a huge part of the book. Like, everyone wants to... I guess that's why I'm always like I'm always perplexed. Like, people are like, oh man, like I want to take a picture on the seat of the Iron Throne. I'm like, that thing was built to intentionally be uncomfortable. Like that's the point. Like the king thought that it would be like a king shouldn't sit.
Yes.
Anyway,
and
go on.
Here it goes, right? So they're holding court. They're looking at what to do with the prisoners. So that's why I think maybe this might be pushed to season 3, but it would have been so sweet at the end of season 2. So one of them looks up at Joffrey and is just so defiant. He's like, oh, you're such a jerk, whatever, blah, blah, blah. He says vile things, right? And Joffrey's like, what? Get him out of here. Joffrey stands up. He chops his hand down. He hits the Iron Throne with his hand. He gets cut on the hand and forearm pretty bad. It starts to bleed pretty bad. And he looks over. He's just like, Mommy. And the person who's like yelling at him is just like, see, the throne rejects him. The throne rejects him. It was like, and Sansa was just like so happy. She was so happy in that moment. I was like, that would have been such a sweet little scene at the end of season 2. Because human beings, Schadenfreude. But maybe they'll have that scene in season 3. I might have just spoiled that for you. But it should have been in season 2.
Yeah, so Marjorie Tyrell, and then Peter Baelish confronts. That sounds incredible, and like I thought you were gonna say like he hits the throne and like his arm flies off. I'd be like, oh my god, that's hardcore. Oh, that reminds me of something I want to ask you about, but the Peter Baelish confronts Sansa, and then it's more of like Sansa has no autonomy. People are just saying how they're smarter than her, and she pouts. And I'm just like, I'm so tired of it. Like, it would have been better if like they have a moment where it like lingers on her, and she's like looking to think of like how she's gonna get out of this situation. I just like, I don't care about Peter Baelish. I know people love him. I know people love listening to him go from like, hi, I'm very charming, and then I'm going to do my sinister talking voice, and now you know that I'm planning something evil and mean, and you can tell by the look on my face.
Middle finger. Oh, God.
Freaking middle finger.
Wait, he makes like no appearances. Basically, he like organizes a marriage. Yeah.
But they like the actor because they chose him. So the other thing I was gonna say is like now that Tyrion has that scar, you pointed out a couple episodes ago that George R. R. Martin is very good at tracking the injuries and reminding you that they're there. So is it like a constant reminder? Like what kind of does he do that with Tyrion's wound? Is he constantly like in pain with it, or like notice like he's missing his nostril?
He notices it itches. He's like he's like the part of his nose that's missing is kind of itching, and he's just like He rubs his finger close to where part of his nose is missing, and yeah, it's every Tyrion chapter you remember because he makes a moment of it and stuff, and you know he goes up to Shay and he's just like, you're ready to kiss me even though I'm, missing a nose? And she says yes. And I don't know how you felt about Shay or how you feel about Shay, but the way I feel about Shay is like, because I remember my feelings when I was reading the book, how I felt when I read it. That was the kind of resonance that these books have given me. It's like, maybe I don't remember every single detail. It's hard to remember. I have to use other sources to like refresh my memory, especially when doing the podcast. But I remember how I felt when I read it. That's one thing I always remember. And I remember reading about Shay, and I remember all that stuff, and I just remember thinking, this is going to end so bad. I don't know how, but Tyrion's scared that's going to be bad, and just everything that I've seen, it's such a tragic story, so many tragedies in this thing. It's like, I feel like this is going to end so terrible and so bad, and I'm scared and I'm nervous, but you're kind of hopeful and you're happy for Tyrion because he's happy. But I just remember
you can't help thinking,
is that, do you have that feeling too?
Yeah. I do have that feeling. Which actually brings us to Roz. No, I feel like his relationship with Shay is too good to be true, and I'm constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I know it's got to drop sometime, but I'm not sure when, and that scares me. It scares me.
I like the way you put it. Waiting for the other shoe to drop. Well said.
Because it's just like she loves him. It's like she either is doing something sinister or she legitimately loves him, and like this is a cruel world, and that is a weakness, and it's a weakness that they now you. I was spoiled with this because I was reading about a little bit about Roz, and you were spoiled about this because you had already read the book. But when Cersei is like, I know who your secret, your secret. I know who's
Right.
valuable to you. It also reminded me of Shogun. I was like, Toranaga would immediately get rid of Shay.
Yes, he would. He would.
But
Well, he would get rid of her in a different way.
She brings in
move her out.
Right, he would find a way to get her out of the situation where she was no longer a liability for him because Toranaga. So in the scene, I remember reading about Roz because you know how we talk about her and we are fine with the actress, but do not like the operation or the way that they use the character. Like the character as conceived and used. Apparently, a good amount of the fan base doesn't.
Well, apparently she's sticking around because now she and Varys are teaming up. Really?
So she was kind of. They use her as like the people. I think I told you this last time. Like they use her as like the populace. And so then when they're like, oh, we just kept finding ways that like, oh, this would be perfect for Roz. And I'm like, poor Roz, can't she get a break? Golly, like, come on. She's like constantly beaten up. She had to shove something up another girl. Like she's being beaten by Cersei. Like I appreciate Varys at the end. It's like, aren't you like, I protect my people. Middle finger doesn't. Look at what he's done to you. And I'm like, yeah, give this poor, you know what, writers, just like give her some sort of a happy ending. Like, come on, let her be. Stop abusing and taking advantage of this poor actress with this character that's like, like if this is their original character and their way of writing an original character, it makes me nervous about diversions to the show. So that's all I'm saying. Yeah. That's all I really have about Roz. Like, she's the kind of catch-all character for abuses.
My wife was saying that it's kind of incredible Roz's sort of rise. She was just a northern person in a brothel, and now she's in King's Landing, the great city, King's Landing, which is actually terrible. It smells horrible. It's a horrible city, but it's the capital. And now she's in the big city, and then she witnesses the deaths of the babies, and then she sees how horrible the king is, and yet she's rising up and just gathering a lot of information. Now, she could become somebody very consequential in the stories because of all the information that she knows. She is gathering a lot of information, and that's probably why they teamed her up with Varys, but that was interesting. A lot of the fan base was not on board with Roz either.
I don't know if it's a lot of the fan base, but there's definitely people in the fan base who are not on board. And again, for me, it's a simple fix. They could have done a couple of things that made her feel more like a better character and not just like their sort of like Guy in Galaxy Quest. She's like the Guy of Galaxy Quest. So like they don't really have a purpose for her, but they need a featured extra in order to represent the populace. Okay, then give her a role. Show her interacting with the people, or give her like you would say, give her choices, give her agency, instead of just having things happen to her or having her meet people and just being in the same room as them. And I think that's the biggest problem is like they created this character that they keep using. I don't know if they're proud of this character that they created, but she has no agency. She's like a prop.
And that's 2 seasons. This is not like what we're discussing here isn't something that happened in 1 season. Like, oh, they're trying to figure it out, or 2 episodes. Oh, let's give her some agency. Oh, let's think about what kind of agency. No, this has been 2 seasons. That's kind of a long time in television line, you know, the number of episodes and for television.
And like, I'm hoping this is the last time we discuss her because I feel like we talk about her a lot. And again, my issue is not that she's a sex worker. My issue is that they don't have a high opinion of sex workers. They want to take all of the agency out of her, and she doesn't really do anything. And if their argument is that they don't have time to develop her because they have all of these other characters that they're working with, then don't put her in. Like, it's bad that the token sort of like plebe character is of a profession that the show constantly shits on. And like, again, they probably shit on a lot of professions, but there's already a stigma attached. You're not helping with that stigma, and you're not really you're not really pushing forward an agenda of sort of like a revolution with her. Not that you need to, but like the idea of like the sexual revolution, because most of the time it's just very token male gazy stuff. It's like, oh, let me look sexy while I'm naked for you. And it's like, but that's all she does. She's either beaten or she looks sexy. That's it. So that's why I have a problem with her. She has no agency. She's used as a sexy lamp. They exploit her just to look titillating most of the time while they're trying to push forward other data or other information. And that's why I have a problem with her. If they fix any of those, if they give her agency, if they give her a choice, if they give her more development, aside from just like observing and then reacting to it, I think I would feel better about the character. But it feels very like, yeah, that's it. I'm going to try not to talk about Roz unless it's plot specific from this point forward. That's my opinion. That's how I've kind of always felt since the second episode that we've recorded.
That's right.
All right.
Yeah, that's.
So if you want to say anything about her storyline, you can. I think it's nice that they're pairing her up with Varys. We'll see if it leads anything interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see if that leads somewhere interesting. Certain character choices, because of where I'm at in Storm of Swords, I know what happens to Shay in the books and her storyline and her character's progression. I do not know how it's going to happen in the show. I feel like it's got to be different for reasons which we'll get into when we get there. There was one thing I had on my mind, but I can't quite remember it. And I think one of the themes of our podcast, and I think we'll probably touch on this more, I'm sure, is that we're not sure if the showrunners really understand the characters that are running the show. And we've seen it with Sansa. Just saw it with your description and your thoughts on Roz. The way they talk about Jaime on the inside the episodes. Aria and her sort of character development there, where I think that she's just completely devaluing life. I don't think that's coming across in the show. And they're not discussing Caitlyn's sort of Caitlyn's central conflicts, which are family. Not only her son, but her brothers and her father. They're not getting to that either.
They don't seem to have time for Caitlyn. They don't seem to care about her.
Yeah. We'll see if these things continue on. I will end on a good note. I think that Lena Headey is an amazing Cersei. I have been proven wrong. I'm not afraid to admit it at all. I'm wrong a lot. I'm probably wrong more often than I'm right. So I gladly tell everybody when I am wrong. Lena Headey has just been fantastic Cersei. I was just really impressed with her acting all season.
Why didn't you think she was going to be good?
I always knew that she was a good actress. Maybe it stems from the fact that we weren't sure if the showrunners would see her. I mean, in the beginning, sort of her demeanor, the way that she would act, wasn't quite how I imagined it. But then watching her act and how I also view Cersei and what she's doing and the path that she's on right now is I think that she's a really good cast for that. I wasn't sure in the beginning if she was as regal, but that's not quite Cersei's character, right? She wishes that she was a man in this world because she has very male drives, put that way. Power.
They started revealing.
They
started kind of revealing that in episode 9.
She lusts after power, and she uses all of her weapons to do it. I think that she goes further than men would. Most men would go, and partly one could say that's because of her station. But if she was a man, it would be very scary because they wield more power in the world of Westeros. So I think that I can see that, and from my opinion of her trajectory of where the story is going, from where I'm at in the books, I think that she is just going to be awesome. So I'm 100% wrong in that, and I wonder if we'll be wrong in the future. We're still on Sansa watch. We're still missing the reads. I mean, there's all these... I mean, look, we just spent, 3.5 hours just chatting about all this stuff, and man, what a world that George R. R. Martin has created for us, that we get to discuss and debate this kind of stuff. Those were...
George R. R. Martin and D.B. Weiss and David Benioff, who created Game of Thrones.
Oh, that's right.
Forget. It's on every episode.
That's right. Yes, they created it. Yes, of course.
So. I also am... an audience out there, I know that I have got those blinders on of it seems like I just hate D.B. Weiss and David Benioff, but they are very successful men. They were very successful with this show, and a lot of people have applauded the show. For me, it seems without really any sort of critical or contemporary analysis or pushback, because people still think that the first couple seasons of the show are untouchable. And I'm enjoying the show.
Oh, you are enjoying
it. I'm enjoying the show, but I do. Well, I'm looking forward to season 3, but also part of me is I'm looking forward to season 3 because I want to know what the storylines that George R. R. Martin wrote for these characters develops, and because you tease what's going to be coming, and I get excited about what you're teasing, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is cool. We talked to our cousin who had read all of the books, and he gave me a bunch of information of nope, you can't sleep on this. No, this person becomes awesome. Nope, this person becomes awesome. And again, we are also living in a post Game of Thrones world. A lot of the things that they did in the show are now things that people do all the time. So it's also hard looking at it from that point of view. Yeah. We are a post-reactionary podcast show. And
yep.
To answer your question, was this season Tyrion's season? Considering he didn't even show up in some episodes, I would have to say it was not his season, and they missed out on it because of it. It was a big miss. I don't know if that had to do with that they had to do those night shoots, and so they couldn't develop some of his storylines. But again... Well, and as we'll see, there starts to be year gaps between Game of Thrones seasons where they're writing episodes and they're just shooting a ton of material for it. And so I sometimes wonder if they had gone back in time and spent more time earlier on going through a more meticulous process, if we would have as many critiques as we ultimately do on the show.
I kind of wonder if maybe they did that because they weren't sure that the show would be going on for a second season.
I don't know. HBO, I think, because Blackwater, I think, was one of the highest rated episodes, and then the show just kept getting high ratings. And I think because they were selling a bunch of toys and swords and Khaleesi was everywhere, I think they knew at that point that they had something.
Khaleesi! So dumb. So dumb.
Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
I do not.
I don't either. Let's close out this verse on the song for Sir Waymar Royce. I am Matthew.
And I am Lucas.
Stay tuned for when we open up the book and start writing again. Have a good one, guys.